Okay, meeting has begun. Please silence the cell phones. If you do have a conversation, since we do have so many mics on and you won't, just step out the door. It rarely happens, but obviously with all the mics working, it can get a little bit confusing, particularly for the video. When you speak, at least the first time, and we're going to go around the table, please state your name. And then also, when we make this first go around, what we do is that's the opportunity for you to introduce yourself, who you represent, particularly if you haven't been to a meeting before. And then also, if you have a brief 1 minute or 2 minute comment about some issue or something you want to announce, the first go around is the time to do that. At the end of the meeting, we'll do another go around where you'll have all the time you want to talk about a subject. And also you would be able to recommend subjects for on the agenda for meetings to come. But that is the way we start the meeting and we end the meeting, so everybody feels like they've got in who they are, why they're here, and at the end, what you'd like to see at the next meeting. We are always out of here at 8 o'clock. So I have a soft gavel, but I will move things along if necessary so that we get out of here. Okay, I'm going to start and we'll move to my left. And I'm Newton Cook, and I'm the facilitator of the Water Management District Recreation Group. And I'm the president of the United Waterfowlers of Florida. I'm on the board of directors of the Future Hunting in Florida, and a few other things. FWC Deer Management Technical Advisory Group, FWC Waterfowl Technical Advisory Group, and also do this work here. And we welcome you to this meeting. We do them quarterly, and it is important because basically about 600,000 acres of district property. We have hikers, bikers, birders, boaters, airboaters, canoeists, every kind of boat you can think of, campers, horseback riders, and my favorite group, the stargazers, attend this meeting from time to time, mostly according when they have issues, and a lot of times the major group like ourselves who work on the day-to-day work. So that's who I am and what I do, and the real important gentleman, Mr. Drew Bartlett, walked in at the right time to introduce himself, and he's the executive director of the district. And Drew, if you want to say
thanks,
a few words.
Sorry I'm late. I actually closed on my new residence this afternoon, and so I came straight from there. It's great to be here. I thought, in honor of, the first meeting under my tenure with RAC-REC, I would do the honors and go ahead and wreck my face before the meeting. So you might be able to see some markings on my face from where I fell while I was running, and it was quite dramatic. But I'm not. This will be my first meeting, Newton. I'm going to let you run it. I am going to learn a lot today about how we manage these issues, because this is new territory for me, coming from the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. But I do see some familiar faces, but a lot of not so familiar faces. Hopefully you'll remember my face not looking like this going forward, but we'll take it from there. So I look forward to learning a lot today, honestly, Newton.
Well, thanks for coming, Drew. What we're doing now is just a round table, and people will introduce themselves and any brief comment they might have to make.
My name is Rory Feeney. I'm the Land Resources Bureau Chief here at the district. I want to thank everybody for coming tonight.
Chris Edelstein, I'm the Acting Division Director for Field Operations and Land Management. Thank you for your time this evening.
Hey, I'm Tom Reinert. I'm the Regional Director for Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission. And it's been a little while since we've had a RAC-REC, so I wanted to come and reaffirm our interest in this group. And certainly under the new leadership, the governing board and Drew, again, reaffirm our commitment to working with them on recreational issues and access and everything that we can bring to bear to help out our shared stakeholders. So thank you for being here and taking the time.
I'm Steve Henry, the Deputy Project Leader of the Loxahatchee National Wildlife Refuge. I'm glad to be here. I'll be sharing with you some information about our new visitor services plan a little later on in the meeting. I appreciate the opportunity, and thanks for the invitation.
My name is Baron Moody. I'm the Regional Freshwater Fisheries Administrator for the Fish and Wildlife Commission. And I guess I'd like to echo Tom's comment about the partnership that the commission tries to support with the district. And if anybody gets our law enforcement summaries, you can see interesting examples of that. There have been several in the last few weeks. We spend a lot of time here at these meetings working at providing public access and recreational opportunities on district lands. And the Fish and Wildlife Commission picks up a lot of the enforcement effort on that. And there have been some great examples of that recently in our summaries. I'd just like to remind everybody that when you're out there, you can support the commission's effort and the district's effort to keep those lands open and available to the public by helping achieve higher rates of compliance. Unfortunately, we don't have 100% compliance among all users, and that's not to say that anybody here isn't doing that, but when you're out there, you become an extra set of eyes and ears to help the officers keep recreation safe and available to everyone. So we've had some really interesting cases made lately on district lands, and you can find those law enforcement summaries through the commission. I just wanted to take a quick note of that. Thanks, Newton.
James Erskine, Everglades Coordinator for FWC, and I'll just second what Tom and Barron had said. But in relation to that, as Everglades Coordinator, my purview is largely the boundaries of this water management district and things that are related to the Comprehensive Everglades Restoration Plan. So I open myself up to the members of the group and the leadership here at the team as well.
Bishop Wright with the Florida Airboat Association. I just want to say thanks for filling up these seats tonight. And I want to say thanks to the Water Management District and all the other agency staffs that are here to listen to our comment, because the recreation is very important for us to have on this property. And also safety is one of our primary concerns, is using the land. And somewhere along the night, I'd like to talk to try and create some kind of vessel flag rule for the Kissimmee Chain of Lakes and the Kissimmee floodplain. We got a little issue with mud boats, and we'd like to try and see other vessels that are using this floodplain also have to be in compliance to have an orange flag like we do in the conservation areas, which the Water Management District and FWC already does. We just want to try and take something that works well there and bring it north to solve some other conflicts that we have up there. Not really conflicts, some safety issues to try and make everybody safer before somebody gets seriously hurt.
Sean McCann, representing the Broward County Airboat Half-Track Conservation Club and Safari Club International, South Florida chapter.
Tom Van Note, the recently elected president of South Florida chapter of Safari Club International. I'm here because I've been an alternate for Everglades Coordinating Council, and I've heard so much about the RAC meetings, and now as president I want to be here to see what happens and see how we can contribute.
Danny Brantley, Kissimmee River Valley Sportsman Association. Just real proud that the district decided to go ahead and continue with these meetings for the RAC. We get a lot accomplished here, and a lot of things will get done right here in this meeting. Thank you.
Billy Boatwright, FSCA.
Ronnie Stone, Osceola Airboaters Association.
Mike Chitters, Osceola Airboat Association.
Scott Summer, Florida Airboat Association.
Go ahead, you can have a second turn.
I get to do it again. Scott Summer, Florida Airboat Association.
Brad Wyrock, Kissimmee Valley Sportsman, Florida Airboat Association. Thank you so much for the decision to reopen this forum. In the 5 years I've been coming down here, there have been some amazing, amazing things happen here. And there are wonderful partnerships and wonderful understandings that come from this and relationships that can only be built by this type of forum. And I'm so glad to see a packed room and look for positive things. This is a good investment from the district with the user groups, and this is a very, very important item. Thank you.
Tom McWaters, Florida Trapping Association.
Pete Tyson, FSCA.
Jamie Millette, Lake Okeechobee Airboat Association.
David Denham, the Florida Trail Association. We have several hundred miles of our Florida National Scenic Trail on your levees. We thank you very much for that access. We couldn't have our statewide trail without it. I'm interested in what's happening at the Southern Gardens Grove remediation. We hope to eventually run our trail across that property if that works out. And I'm anxious to see what's going on at the A1 FEB. I personally do biking in that area. But again, thank you for your support of our group.
Richard Martinez, Backcountry Hunters and Anglers. This is my first meeting. Really excited to be here and for the opportunity to listen in and potentially weigh in. Really excited about our public land opportunities here in South Florida. I enjoy a lot of them and hope to continue and pass that on to my son. And particularly interested in the expanded opportunities at Loxahatchee.
Scott Baker, I'm the Florida State Chair for Backcountry Hunters and Anglers.
Jim Hazley, I'm also here representing Backcountry Hunters and Anglers.
Mark Dombrowski, Florida Sportsman's Conservation Association. One thing I wanted to note is one of our members, you may look around missing, John Halverson passed away this month. So he's been with us maybe 10 years he's been at this table. So great conservationist, and I think he's taught a lot of us younger guys an awful lot about not only working with the district, working with the commission, and what it means to bring up family and grandchildren. So.
I'm Jerry Kranz, and I work in the Public Use of Wildlife section here at the Water Management District.
I'm Steve Coughlin. I'm the section administrator for the Land Stewardship section. The last meeting we had here was back in December. Since that time, our board has been evaluating a lot of the standing committee meetings and other types of meetings we had. And I wanted to thank those of you who came to our governing board meeting a couple months back and spoke on behalf of this meeting that we have, our recreational meeting, and let them know how important it was, because it's good for staff to be able to share with you all the new opportunities coming up, but just as important to hear your input on how we can improve our recreational program. So thanks for those who took time to attend the board meeting and speak on behalf of this group.
I'm Pete Quashis. I'm an involuntarily retired Orvis fishing guide. I'm currently the vice chair of the Snook and Game Fish Foundation, now called the Angler Action Foundation, and I'm president of the Isaac Walton Lake of Southwest Florida. I have a day job too. I work for Audubon lobbying to try and get good projects built. I'd like to call to your attention the fact that we had reauthorization of the Land and Water Conservation Fund. This is the monies that come from the royalties from the gas and oil drilling. Hundreds of millions of dollars a year, which have been diverted from conservation areas over the years to other purposes. There's two pieces of legislation currently working, one in the Senate and one in the House, both bipartisan, which would require $900 million a year from these royalties to go for conservation, land acquisition, easement acquisition facilities. There has been millions and millions of dollars worth of projects which have been built over the years. My organizations have already signed on in support of this. We're seeking co-sponsors from our delegation and other congressmen with whom you have a relationship. This is a friendly operation. It is not an encouragement of new drilling. This is royalties from existing wells. It's your piece of the action to which you are entitled. Obviously, the opportunity to use some of these funds in the future for the Northern Everglades National Wildlife Refuge is huge. 100,000 acres perhaps of easements, 50,000 acres of fee simple, which would be open for public use. So I urge you individually to consider signing on in support of this program. The Teddy Roosevelt Conservation Partnership has an excellent letter that explains what it's going. It gives you an opportunity to sign in either individually or if you have the authority to sign in on behalf of your organization. Please support this. This is the way we get funding that is not ad valorem taxes. This is a willing seller, non-tax operation. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Monica Sobokul. I work here at the district in the Everglades Planning and Coordination Division, and I'm here today to provide you with an update on the Kissimmee River restoration.
Susan Goslin, I'm with Osceola County. I'm here to present on Cypress Lake.
Hi, Dan Cotter, a section leader of the Public Units and Wildlife Unit with the South Florida Water Management District.
Jennifer Smith, I'm the Chief of Staff here at the Water Management District. I'm also new to the district and to this meeting. I just started in April with Drew, so I'm excited to listen and learn from everyone here.
Hi, Yvette Bonilla from South Florida Water Management District, coordinator of this meeting.
Fred, Mr. Fred Davis, would you like to tell us who you are?
Fred Davis, Florida Trail. That's right. Senior role. Florida Trail Association. I was here at the first meeting. I hope I'm not here at the last.
Fred.
That means it's going to go forever.
Fred, you did a lot of wonderful work. Bob, you want to? Bob Mooney? That's all?
I'm saving it for Drew.
Yeah. Next gentleman back there, would you like to just say who you are? And who?
SCI South Florida chapter.
SCI, wonderful, yeah. Okay, who else came in the back there?
Mike Milton, member of the Florida Sports Conservation Association.
Okay, very good. Anyone else? Okay, as you all know, this is an open meeting. There are no 3-minute limits. There are no public comment times. If you have something you want to say, just come up, raise your hand, and during the course of the meeting, and you will be recognized. So the first presentation, Susan Goslin, Lake Cypress Boat Ramp Area Improvements. And Susan is from the Osceola County Public Works Stormwater Program Manager.
Good evening. I am very happy to say it's raining, and we're getting some rain in our lakes. It's been pretty dry up our way, and I've heard all about it. So I'm here to talk about our Cypress Lake project. I am Susan Goslin. I am the Natural Resources Manager for Osceola County. Cypress Lake, if you don't know where it is, it's centrally located in the upper Kissimmee chain of lakes. Okay. And it is centrally located in Osceola County on the Polk-Osceola County line. So it's on the west side of the county. It's a nice little lake. Cypress Lake is a good launching point if you want to get to the other lakes. You can get to Lake Toho through C-35, you can get to Hatchnaha, and you can get to Kissimmee. It's very popular with our bass fishermen. Now, we've got one project right now proposed for Cypress Lake in fiscal year 2020. Excuse that typo, please. And this is some boat ramp parking improvements. Back in 2013, Osceola County undertook a master boat ramp plan which outlines some improvements to all the boat ramps within Osceola County. What we could not foresee was the amount of use that Cypress Lake was going to get. It seems to have tripled in a very short amount of time. We know that on a busy weekend, we easily get up to 40 to 50 boat truck trailers lined up along Lake Cypress Road. It is crowded. So here's the current, what we have for parking. We got a small area that the airboats generally use on the north side of the ramp. And for launching, we have a room for approximately 20 truck trailer combinations along the south side of Lake Cypress Road. We have one handicap parking space, which unfortunately is not configured for boat trailer combinations. So if you really have a problem in. Recently we put 2 portalets out there. We had no restrooms out there. We recently put 2 portalets in for now. And there really is no turnaround for the truck trailer combinations. If you're running a big bass boat, and I've seen these things get pretty long now, you're really squeezing to get yourself turned around. And Wild Florida is expanding into that area they have, that parking lot, so we're going to lose some space there. Our proposed improvements, we've got 3 areas we're looking at, and this is highly conceptual. We've been meeting with the airboats, we've been talking to the bass fishermen, meeting with Wild Florida, meeting with South Florida, trying to work out some details. Area 1, we're going to permit the area used by airboaters. We're going to make this a formal permit. We are going to fill and stabilize the parking and launch areas, put in some geo-web and fill that in. And we're going to permit and construct a turnaround by the boat ramp so that these bigger truck trailer combinations can actually turn around there instead of coming backwards all the way down Cypress Road. Area 2 is our current parking area. We're going to construct 3 handicap parking spaces. We know we need them. And we're going to stabilize the parking area again with the geo-web and some more lime rock. And we believe we will be putting a vault toilet in this area, preferably out of the floodplain, but hopefully in this area so it's closer to the ramp. Area 3, this is highly conceptual because we've not hammered out the details, but design, permit, construct additional parking approximately 1,200 feet from the existing ramp. This will take the overflow parking that we currently see parking on Lake Cypress Road. And this is an additional location for a vault toilet if we cannot get it closer to the lake. We also expect to put in a crosswalk for people to cross to the south side of Lake Cypress Road and then travel through the Wild Florida parking area that they are permitting now. And these are my final words. I'm quick. The proposed project is preliminarily budgeted for fiscal year 1920. No design or permitting has occurred. We have preliminary costs for engineering. And we are working with South Florida Water Management District. This isn't the one I changed. Well, the MOU isn't in place. We are still working on where this is going to be. And if this is budgeted, it is estimated that construction on the project will begin in spring in 2020. I know that's not quick, but that's as quick as we believe we can get it. Any questions?
Thank you very much. Any questions? I'll ask one question. You say if it's budgeted, what can we specifically do to help you get it budgeted?
Oh, just tell our commissioners you'd like it budgeted. It's been a priority for our upper management. They made it a priority. We believe it's going to go through. We're looking at using tourist development tax dollars to build this.
Well, the point is, if you need some people to show up at a particular meeting, to speak for the budget, this group right here usually can supply some people from a local area. So be sure to approach us when you get to that point.
I believe Ron and Mike's going to be there. They'll definitely be there.
Yes, sir.
Again, Ron Stone, Osceola Airboaters Association. We've been working with Susan and the commissioners in Osceola County and with Dan and Steve. I can't say it's been enjoyable, but it hasn't been that bad. These guys are really good people to work with, and it's been I can say it's been an enjoyable experience for me. And I want to personally thank Susan for the effort that she's putting in to get this done. It's much needed. And yeah, we will be at the meeting if you need us to be at the meeting.
Anyone else on this particular topic? Okay, Susan, thank you very much. That was brief and to the point. Next, we have Monica Sovaku, pretty close, huh? Restoration and Planning Coordinator, the Senior Project Manager on the Kissimmee River, excuse me, Kissimmee River Restoration Project update. And we have a lot of people here who are on the Kissimmee River a lot, so I'm sure they're looking forward to that.
Thank you. So what I'll do, since it's probably, from what I've heard, it's been about 2 years since we've provided you with an update on this project. I'll give you a brief overview. We'll talk a little bit about a construction update and projected timelines of what's been completed and what still needs to be completed. And then I'll update you on the temporary navigation restrictions that are planned in the area. So this project is a 50-50 cost share between the district and the Army Corps. The district is responsible for the land acquisition and environmental monitoring, and the Corps is responsible for design and construction. For this project, the district is also responsible for 100% of the operation and maintenance costs and maintaining the project once construction is complete. So the work consists of backfilling 22 miles of the C-38 canal, which amounts to about a third of the canal. Doing this will reconnect about 45 miles of the river channel. And as part of the project as well, we've removed 2 water control structures. Construction is anticipated to be completed by next summer, 2020. And once it's completed, we'll move into the restoration evaluation program, which is basically a monitoring period for 5 years to determine success and overview. So since the last update, I wanted to let you know what has been completed. The MacArthur ditch backfill project has been completed. This is for reference. Let me get my pointer up here for you. There we go. So this right here, Lake Istapoga, here's the Lake Istapoga Canal, and this is where MacArthur Ditch was. Oops. So this was an old farm ditch that became a preferential flowway, causing a short circuit in the natural river channel. Backfilling the ditch was essential to restore the flow to the natural river channel and rehydrate the adjacent floodplain. The ditch was about 2.5 miles long and 6 feet deep, and that project was completed in early 2017. We've also completed the C-37 embankment armoring. Let me get my little pointer up here again. Okay. So C-37's right here. It connects Lake Hitchnaha to Lake Kissimmee. This is in Polk and Osceola counties. This contract consisted of placing about 1 mile of turf reinforcement matting and 1.7 miles of riprap along the eastern bank of the C-37. This is a high traffic area, and it was eroding the banks. This work was just completed in April of this year. So what's remaining? On the right-hand side here, we have the Corps works and contracts. If you're not familiar, they have contract numbers. So basically, we have 3 contracts remaining. Let me get my pointer up here. So again, here's the Istapoga Canal, and then this is called Reach 3 in this area. Reach 2 in this area, south to Reach 3, and then the S69 Weir. Those are the 3 remaining works. So the Reach 2 backfilling and S69 Weir are currently in progress, and then the Reach 3, they hope to award that contract in September of this year for work to start in the fall. So navigation restrictions. This is actually sent to me from the Corps. They should be releasing a press release this week. They were hoping to release it last week, but it didn't. That didn't happen. So this week, they're hoping to get that press release out. So just to quickly point out to you, if you can't see it, the red and white symbols, like here and here, Those are where the floating safety barriers will be placed across the river channel to restrict the public access. The green delineates the portions of the river and the C-38 and S.F.W.M.D Canal that will remain open through construction. And the red delineates the portion of the canal that will be restricted and not navigable indefinitely, basically. There is one exception over here in the southeast corner, where this is the historic river channel here, and a small portion of the C-38 that will be just temporarily closed. Again, once construction is completed, in the reaches throughout the year, the barriers will be lifted, but the Corps, they don't have a specific timeline for each of those areas, so they could not provide me with that. Okay. So that black circle, again, that's reach 2. In this area, the closest public access points is the boat ramp here at the S.F.W.M.D Canal right off 98. If you put in here, you can navigate north through the channel past, this is not restricting access north, it's just restricting the canal here. So you can navigate north, or you can navigate south down to what used to be the Locks access road here. And then further down here for non-motorized vessels at the 4E's canoe and kayak launch, if you put in here, you can navigate basically north to that old Locks access road or south to the C-38.
Excuse me, Monica, some of you guys might have questions here because this is pretty detailed information on restrictions, and so if you do have a question here, it'd be appropriate if you'd like to ask it now instead of waiting to the end. If not, we'll just continue. Everybody okay with what they see so far? Okay, just.
Yep.
Sounds good to me.
All right. So again, we're in reach 2. I just kind of wanted to show you a photo just to give you an idea what's going on out there and some of the work we've done and need to do. So for reference, this is the C-38 or the old C-38 here. This was backfilled. This work began in January of 2017. And this is the reach that also had a water control structure in it. In September 2017, of course, we had Irma. So work was suspended, and Irma also caused erosion because of the high water. Work again was resumed last year briefly, but they had to stop again due to high water. So the repairs are still in progress and again anticipated to be completed by next summer. So in this photo, just to show you, so this is the historic channel here. So those high water events did erode throughout here, and so they need to refill this and some of these low areas as well. So once that's completed, if you're from a navigability perspective, this will all be closed off, so you'll just kind of navigate through the historic channel here. So down here, circled is what we're calling Reach 3 and also the S69 Weir. The closest public access point to this area, once the restrictions are in place, will be further south and off the map. There's some ramps at the S.F.W.M.D structure. So if you put in there, you will be able to navigate the river channel up north here to this restriction right here at the C-38. If you go south, there is no restriction further south. If you go up the canal, you'll be restricted at the CSX railroad crossing. Apparently there's also a quote-unquote ramp just north of 98. It's not an official ramp, but it's a locally known area to put in a vessel. That whole area is restricted right there, so I wouldn't recommend trying to put in there. And again, as work is completed, the Corps will lift restrictions piece by piece as they complete work. So for Reach 3, some fun photos. So this Reach 3 work, again, consisted of backfilling 2 miles of the C-38 canal and degrading some spoil areas. So this work began in January of 2016. So here in the April, this is April 2016, it's kind of, construction's underway. Here on the west side, that's a spoil area that they've been degrading. Then they're using the fill to fill the C-38, so here it's under construction. Over here is the Kissimmee River, the historic channel. In this next photo, May 2016, they were just about finished here, so this is almost complete, or basically completed for this particular section. And then we had a extended high water event in May of 2016 that eroded the backfill. So the work going on in this area, again, will be to refill those areas that were eroded of the C-38, and also some additional degrading of those spoil areas. In this bottom picture, so this was basically what it looks like now from the erosion. This is that same area that was filled. So once it's completed, this will be non-navigable. So these red arrows kind of show how you would navigate this particular portion so you'd go around here through the canal, through the river. You'll cross where the canal is here and then continue on. So this will be all full, and south of here will be filled. And the most southern extent of the project area, we're getting almost there, almost finished, is the S69 weir construction and backfill. So this is installing this U-shaped weir, which I have outlined here in red. This is facing north. This is the CSX railroad crossing. Over here is another one of those spoil areas that they've degraded, and that's where they're getting the fill from. This photo was just taken last month. The weir is currently under construction. When I was out there, they were installing the weir over here. They were getting ready to cross the C-38, which they may have done by now. I'll find out Thursday at our update, and then they'll go south. So I would imagine there's already one of those safety barriers in place around here on the CSX railroad crossing. So this weir will serve as the downstream extent of the C-38 canal backfill and of the Kissimmee River restoration extent, or project. The weir will basically maximize the amount of wetlands to be rehydrated in the basin, the Kissimmee River basin. It'll dissipate the energy flows, transitioning from the restored Kissimmee River floodplain. So as the water's moving here and being funneled sort of towards the canal, it'll reduce the energy as it flows over the weir. And then here in pink, I just shaded it in to kind of give you an idea of what will be backfilled. So up here to one point where the historic channel will cross, and then this is just a little arm that will be filled in. So this, again, all this work is anticipated to be completed by next summer. So here, just again, if you were navigating in this area, the closest access point to this area will be those ramps south at the S.F.W.M.D structure. Questions?
Okay, folks.
I think we have one in the back.
Yes, Bob. Come use the mic, Bob, because otherwise you're not gonna be recorded. There's one right there, or you could use the regular one over there.
Yeah, I got two of them. So this project was supposed to be done decades ago. When is it supposed to be done now?
Next summer.
Okay. Now, for those who don't know, the first study of eutrophication of Lake Okeechobee by the state was in 1972. This channel was completed in 71, and the Corps purposely did not control the sediments off of their dredging. So most of the material in Lake Okeechobee that's contributing to this algae is really from that project. No question. Lastly, I would move that this group and the Water Management District have this completed project named for Johnny and Mariana Jones. Johnny Jones was the initiator of this back in the 70s, and no one ever believed that it would be done. But he knew it would.
Thank you.
Yes, he was not a very happy camper when they dug that ditch. Okay, anyone else? Yes, Bishop.
I just would like to, the future of the 98, whatever you want to call it, launch site for airboats is important for us. And we realize, especially with the L8, access that we lost right here around the corner here, that DOT is sooner or later going to close that down. It's no secret. And monitoring the 4E's canoe launch site that was set aside for canoes is kind of not used, okay? And I think from Shady Oaks, we've seen that we can all get along, and that's a big enough piece of property there, and we could work something out to get another access point. We're going to be needing that other access point. That's a long stretch now that it's not a canal, it's a wandering river, and it's twice the mileage, and there's a lot of gas to be burned in there, and a beautiful floodplain. And we just would like to entertain maybe working out something to share that 4E's ramp with the canoeist, as in an airboat, maybe a motorboat launch ramp of some kind there. Nothing fancy. We're not looking for the Istapoca ramp. We're just looking for another area because it's a long stretch on the river. So just kind of make up for what we're going to lose on 98, because it's no secret that that's temporary.
That's a very good point. Anyone else on this? Do you happen to know how much the cost of this project is, just offhand? How many hundreds of millions?
I don't have a number, but I can get it for you.
Somebody's got to have it. I'm not going to guess a number, but it's several $100 million, I can tell you. This is an incredible project. Bob probably knows the number. It's an incredible project. We sometimes see this, and you see the filling and this, that, and the other. I don't think anything like this ever been done to this scale. It's kind of like the restoration program in the Everglades. I mean, nothing's ever been done to that scale. Bob, do you know the number?
It costs $50 million to do it. It's very hard to put a number on it right now, but it's probably in the neighborhood of $900 million. And when they say restoring the Kissimmee, they're only doing about a third of it.
That's right. And Bob's exactly right. This is only about a third. I don't think we have the management, the land management people on this. As you all know, I have a problem with the fact that we're not burning it, and that we have it in some type of scientific idea. We're just going to let nature take its course and see what happens. And I think the point that we're only restoring about a third of it says there's no such thing as nature taking its course back to where it was originally. So I have recommended that we look at the man having a little impact on burning these areas, because we're going to end up with what I call the St. Johns River disease. And if you drive up 95 and look to your left, when you get up around Melbourne, all you see is willows for as far as you can see. And if you spend $500 million to grow a willow brake, it's kind of like when I mentioned about the SDAs and growing cattails. We're spending a lot of money here, guys. Let's have some reasonably natural-looking properties. And so that's a point that some of us have made off and over the 15 years we've been doing this. Yes, sir. There's the answer coming.
Yeah, I'll just add to that.
We've been able to, work closely with the Kissimmee River Restoration Group to integrate the prescribed burning in with the 5-year long-term monitoring plan for it. So we've been able to ramp up the burning because I think everyone agrees that's an important part of the long-term management of those wetland systems.
We have great land management here, I can tell you, from many experiences over the years. And I don't think anyone to say I'm not pretty pushy about something like this particular project, because I used to hunt up there a lot when I had some more friends up there. And to see it then and to see it now, it's just an incredible change. And it's going to be a beautiful place, but we've got to manage it properly. Okay, thank you very much,
Thank you.
Monica. And now we have Steve Henry at the Arthur R. Marshall Loxahatchee National Wildlife Refuge, the deputy project leader. Some of us remember the alligator hunt wars and how it took, 5 years to get the gator hunt, but 20 gators or some small amount. And we considered that a victory. And I want to tell you guys, some of you have already seen this. This is one of the most incredible things the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has ever done, is this project they have running now, not just here, but across the country. And the first time I saw this, I was just set back, and I'm sure it'll be the same way tonight, because it's an incredible opportunity for all the public, not just hunting, but the anglers, the hikers, bikers, and it's just an incredible opportunity if we can get this through. It is not done, as Steve will be sure to tell you. Thank you, Steve.
Well, thank you, Newton. As I mentioned, my name is Steve Henry. I'm with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. I'm the deputy project leader of the Arthur R. Marshall Loxahatchee National Wildlife Refuge. And I thought I would start by giving a little credit where credit is due. So if you would indulge me for a moment, I just wanted to share with you a great partnership that we've had with the Florida Sportsmen's Conservation Association. We've been working with them for the last 3 or 4 years on a number of projects. We've cut melaleuca and treated it on tree islands in the refuge. We've worked with them to remove some old restoration research sites, thousands of pounds, dozens and dozens of tons of old debris from the refuge, wood and steel. A lot of this was recycled. Here you can see a shot from one of our recent work days. We typically do this around Earth Day as kind of a celebration and an opportunity for us to partnership. This past spring, we nominated the group for an award. We've been working especially closely with Bishop, so I put Bishop on the spot a little bit. We nominated them for a Regional Director's Conservation Honor Award. The gentleman to Bishop's right is our Regional Director, Leo Miranda, and the lady all the way to the right is our Acting Director who came down from Washington specifically for this event. So this was in early May, and it was our pleasure to honor Bishop and the entire group who's been such a great partner to work with. And Bishop brought a few people along with him. We have some family members. The gentleman all the way to the left you may recognize is Chris Wynn from FWC. He was present to accept an award on behalf of Eric Sutton, who was honored. And also some of you may know Linda King, who works for FWC. She's a tremendous invasive species biologist who's been working very closely with us for a number of years. And so we presented awards to all of them. The lady between Chris and Bishop is one of our great volunteers, Kathy Patterson. So I just wanted to share that with you. Thank the Sportsmen's Conservation Association for this great partnership, and hope that it continues. We have more work planned, and so this, I think, is a real success story. So thank you guys for all your hard work. So I'm here today to talk to you about our Visitor Services Plan. This plan arose out of a variety of things. Most recently, I'm sure many in the room are aware, we renegotiated the license agreement, a new 20-year agreement with the district. That was finalized in February of 2018, and part of the new license agreement was that the refuge was asked to consider 25 different public uses. And so that manifested itself in what we call the visitor services planning process, which is a process specific to fish and wildlife that we use to step it down into planning goals and standards that I'll touch on in a minute, but it's a public process where we involve very, very directly the public and solicit their feedback and build it into the process. And I'd also like to call out for special recognition Tom Reinert and his team from FWC, who've been involved from the beginning and have just been tremendous partners, and also Rory Feeney and his folks from the South Florida Water Management District. We've had really great support and partnership throughout this effort, and that continues to this day as we move on into implementation. So thank you all for your help in this process. And so here is the process. We started in April of last year, shortly after the new license agreement was signed, with meeting with various intergovernmental partners and other conservation partners. We held 2 initial public scoping meetings, which then led to the creation of the draft document. So it took us several months to write the document, which we then released last spring for public comment. It was out for 60 days. We held a public meeting, which I know some of you in the room attended. We received almost 500 comments from the public, many really good, worthwhile comments that we considered, many of which were incorporated into the final draft. The plan was submitted to our regional office, and it was signed just a month ago by our regional chief in Atlanta. It's about a year-long process, which may seem like a long time, but in the federal government, that's light years. That is blisteringly fast, and we're proud to turn it over as quickly as we did. And now we're on the cusp of moving then from the plan into implementation. So the plan is finalized, the ink is kind of sort of dry, and now we're moving quickly and thoughtfully into the implementation process, and this is where our partners continue to play such an important role. So these are the standards in our planning model that I'll touch on. I won't dwell on this slide, but I'll touch on more as I go through. Of course, you're familiar with the refuge. If you're not, the large kind of greenish area in the center looks like a teardrop is what we call the interior. It's surrounded by a 57-mile perimeter levee. This is also what's known as Water Conservation Area 1. That resonates with many of the Water Management District folks. Interchangeably, WCA 1 or the refuge. Just to the kind of center right, the orangish parcel in the kind of northeast corner is Struzula. Some of you may be familiar with it. About the same time we finalized the license agreement, we completed a land exchange with the district where we exchanged Struzula, which is a great rain-fed cypress swamp marsh on the eastern side of the refuge, for what we call Compartment D, or the snail farm, which was an isolated parcel on the southwestern corner of the refuge, that the district is now incorporating into the STA 1 West Phase 2 expansion. So that will become part of 1 West. So that was a great exchange, benefited both parties. We're really excited to have Struzula, and we'll soon be opening it to public use. And then that brown parcel on the very right is our headquarters area, where my office is located, where much of our recreational infrastructure is at the moment. And so a whole variety of different options that we're proposing. And as I read through this morning before I came over, I thought, boy, there's an awful lot in here. Whew. It's going to take, it's a challenge, and it's going to take a lot of work, but it's also an exciting time for the refuge because we're really, moving forward with lots of great ideas, and we're excited to welcome the public to the refuge and enjoy all that it has to offer. So first thing is hours. We're going to go to 24/7 for most of the refuge, with the exception of Lee Road, which is our headquarters area. We have some residents living there. So with the exception of kind of that one brown parcel I showed you, the remainder of the refuge will be open 24/7. We'll be updating our signs and our publications. We're looking at new entry points, access points for Struzula, which is an issue that we're continuing to work through. We just met recently with the county and the district, and we're looking at bridging a canal from the West Delray Regional Park at the end of Atlantic to the L40, which would provide a new access point to the L40 levee. And we've got a variety of other ideas in mind that are maybe a little bit further behind, but we're working with our partners to really make increased access a priority. And then hunting opportunities. We have already a waterfowl hunt and an alligator hunt, and we're looking at continuing and even expanding those hunts, and now opening a deer hunt as well, which I'll touch on in a minute. And so just as, you know, as I discuss all of these different opportunities, kind of the overriding thought is we're going to start conservatively. We're going to take very, thoughtful steps and measure as we go, so that the hope is that we'll minimize our impact on the resource and we'll maximize benefits to visitors, to sportsmen and women. And so we're taking our time, but we're not dragging our feet. We're being thoughtful, and we're working with our partners to really come up with a plan that works and that respects the needs of the refuge and our visitors. So for hunts, only one watercraft is permitted, and the text in red is text that was changed in the final document as a result primarily of public input. So one watercraft per hunter, but they can bring a non-motorized vessel like a kayak or a canoe with them to go further into the interior if need be. As I said, we're going to determine permit numbers by population surveys and carrying capacity, and it's subject to change. So this is adaptive management in action. We're putting safety zones around our recreational infrastructure. Right now we have it at a half mile. That may change over time as we kind of settle in and figure out what makes the most sense. Non-toxic ammunition. Once a hunter's limit is reached, the hunter shall leave the hunting area. So we're trying to maximize the quality of the hunt for all of the hunters on the refuge. And motorized vessels, including airboats, will be used for hunting in the interior, will be permitted to provide a means of transportation in support of wildlife-dependent public use, so hunting. What we're trying to promote is the use of airboats as a transportation method for hunting. What we're trying to avoid is someone pulling a permit and using it as an excuse to joyride around the refuge and not seriously hunt. So it's a fine line, and this is where, quite frankly, we could use your help, because I know some of you will be out there, and you will be our hunters, you will be our airboaters, and so this is part of building the relationships and partnerships that we want that feedback from you on what is and isn't working. So this is one of our concerns, and we're trying to address that as best we can through rules like this. We're going to be avoiding overlap between deer hunting and waterfowl hunting. There will be some overlap between alligator hunting, potentially, and waterfowl hunting, but to the best of our abilities within the tight seasons, we're trying to avoid overlap of different types of hunts. And so deer in the interior, we're going to start conservatively with 0 to 16 days. Obviously not 0, but potentially, if we had to shut it down, we could. We're going to start probably with 2 3-day weekend hunts in the fall. That would allow archery, crossbow, air gun, shotgun, and centerfire rifle. It'll be a quota permit hunt with non-motorized and airboat access for permittees only, and it'll be 1 deer per permit. We're looking at starting with a maximum of about 10 airboat permits, with the possibility to increase that to 20 over time if all looks good. And then we've got some stand rules in place. So this gets to the idea of kind of fair chase and also minimizing disturbance and inconvenience for other hunters. So boats need to be in place an hour before sunrise, not move till an hour after sunrise, and they need to be stopped and no forward movement for 15 minutes before shooting. Again, airboat permit would be required. We're going to close the entire interior of the refuge during this hunt for safety reasons. So this will be exclusively available to deer hunters during, as I say, initially probably 2 3-day hunts. Dogs will be permitted for blood trailing. It'll be a buck-only hunt with 2 or 3-point antler restrictions. So we're right on the edge of Deer Management Unit A1 and Deer Management Unit C2. In A1, it's a 2-point restriction. In C2, Corbett, it's a 3-point restriction. And so we're working on our implementation teams and with our partners at FWC to figure out what makes the most sense. We may be more conservative initially with 3 points. We may go with 2. It depends on what the data tells us, what the population numbers look like, and what kind of results we get back from our deer hunters. And again, free roaming or unrestricted airboat travel that's not directly associated with hunting will not be permitted. So this gets to that whole minimizing unnecessary disturbance and potential joyriding. Here's Struzula. This is that parcel that we exchanged in that northeast corner. It'll be archery and crossbow only. at least initially, and this is out of concerns from the residents. There is a residential area that wraps all the way around most of the perimeter of that parcel, and so there were concerns from the residents about the potential for firearms causing trouble, causing problems. So initially, anyway, it'll be archery and crossbow, and then we'll see how that pans out over time. Same thing, probably two 3-day hunts, one early in the season and one a little bit later. We have quite a hog population in Struzula, and so it'll be incidental take for hog. It'll also, by the way, be incidental take for hog in the interior, but the alligators take care of most of that for us, so we don't really have much of an issue with hogs in the interior. A 300-foot buffer around the perimeter of the property, and again, dogs for blood trailing. Bucks only, 2 to 3 points, as I mentioned earlier. That will adjust over time. We're also looking at some specialty hunts, and these are like wounded warrior or disability type hunts. One would be on what we call the Tower Road. It's an access road to a radio tower in Struzula, and another would be on the very eastern edge of what we call the A impoundments, the western edge of the cypress swamp. And these would be very highly regulated, very tightly controlled hunts, small numbers of permits. We're talking about less than a half dozen permits. We would be very actively involved in these hunts along with our partners from FWC. Alligator hunting will continue and actually be expanded. You can see the hunt unit in blue at the bottom of the interior. That has not changed, but we're now providing airboat access for alligator hunting throughout that area and up the L7 on the west side of the refuge to 20 Mile Bend. So that blue that runs up the left side of the interior will be open for airboating. The eastern side, the orange line, will be open for motorboating but not airboating, and that's primarily because of concerns over the noise that airboats would create. But far more access for airboating, access for airboating period, and more access for alligator hunting in general. And we're looking at increasing the number of permits as the harvest data permits. Right now, it's 2 weekends in harvest period 1, 2 weekends in harvest period 2, and then the remaining weekends in October for unfilled tags. The rules and regulations on the refuge have not changed in terms of alligator hunting in that respect. But I said as the harvest data comes in, we are going to look at adjusting permit numbers, perhaps increasing the numbers. Right now, it's 11 permits with 22 tags. Migratory bird hunting is being proposed for the entire refuge interior. Currently, it is just in the blue area, the southern roughly quarter of the interior. We're now proposing that it be allowed in the entirety of the interior. The blue area at the bottom would be open to motorized use, including airboats. The green area in the center and northern part of the refuge would be open to non-motorized use, like canoes and kayaks. We're going to adjust our hours to make them compliant with state hours. So right now, hunting ends at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. There's no hunting on Christmas. We're now going to mirror the state hours, so it would be an hour before sunrise until sunset, and we'll be open on Christmas Day as well. We're also looking at allowing moorhen and snipe and rail, but we have some concerns. We don't have a whole lot of data about those species on the refuge, particularly rail, and there's a species of rail that's being proposed for listing, federal listing, so we're not quite ready to go there yet. We need to collect some more population information, but depending on what the data shows us, there is a good chance that we'll open some, if not all of those species to hunting in the not too distant future. Again, the buffers around our recreational infrastructure. In terms of migratory bird hunting, phase 1 will be non-motorized only. Phase 2 then would allow airboats and other motorized, so motorboats and airboats. So phase 2 being the longer phase will provide significant access for airboats in that southern portion that's shown in blue. The same kind of stop rules for motorized vessels. And we're looking at somewhere around 15 waterfowl airboat permits to start with, and then we'll monitor and adjust from there. We're going to be expanding our fishing opportunities. We're looking at bow fishing, what we call fish gigging, which is basically fish spearing, not spear fishing. You're not in the water, but you're spearing fish from out of the water. And then frog gigging. We're going to allow frog gigging from the middle of July through the middle of March. And we've come up with what we think is a common sense limit of 50 frogs per boat or per party per day. Frogging isn't allowed around our recreational infrastructure, but it's allowed in the canals, and it's actually allowed anywhere you can fish on the refuge. And the whole interior now will be open to some form of access, either motorized or non-motorized, and it will all be open then to fishing, bow fishing, and frog gigging. Skip through that. So some of our other uses that we're looking at, increasing wildlife observation and photography opportunities. These are two more priority public uses on National Wildlife Refuges. So we're looking at constructing observation towers and photo blinds, boardwalks, webcams, where we could broadcast wildlife activity on the internet. We're looking at converting some of our management impoundments to make them more friendly to wading birds, to promote wading bird nesting. We get lots of photographers, bird watchers, artists who really enjoy seeing that, and we're looking at ways where we can make at least some of our impoundments more friendly specifically for wading bird nesting. Environmental education, we're looking at longer term, further down the road. This would be a significant capital investment, constructing an additional educational facility at Struzula. We have a nice parcel of land just on the edge that would work well for that. Expanding our interpretive programs, developing new exhibits, especially those that target younger children, which is kind of a gap in our program that's been identified by the public. Increasing our interpretive programs. Right now we offer programs in Spanish and Portuguese. We'd like to reach out to volunteers and hire staff members who speak a variety of other languages common in this area and offer programming in additional languages. And incorporate additional events. Many of you, I'm sure, have been to Everglades Day. We'd like to have more of those types of events on the refuge and welcome the public to get to know the refuge in the Everglades. And then a whole variety of other recreational uses that I'll touch on quickly. We're looking at several different trails, one on the east side of the refuge that would cut through the cypress swamp and tie into the Upper A impoundments. We've consistently over the past 5 years been opening more areas up to hiking and biking, and we have an opportunity to open up about 20 more miles, so we'll be looking at that. We're also looking at constructing a canoe trail at the southern end of the refuge. We have one in the eastern central portion. We're looking at constructing something similar in the south end and actually putting up a couple platforms where people can go out and camp at night on that trail, and I'll touch on that in a moment. So motorized and non-motorized watercraft access. This is the map that shows the designated hunt unit at the southern end in blue will be open to motorized watercraft and non-motorized vessels in the green area, except for specific hunts. As I said earlier, the entire interior will be open to airboating, for example, during the deer hunt. The perimeter canals will also be open, of course, to motorized traffic. Leashed pets. So I say this plan encompasses so many different things. One of the requests that we frequently get is, I've come to the refuge, I have my pet, where can I go? Right now, you can't go anywhere because we don't allow pets on the refuge, and that has been an issue. So we've come up with what we think is a reasonable solution to allow leashed pets or confined pets. I mean, we get people who show up with parrots on their shoulder and pot-bellied pigs and all sorts of interesting things. And so leashed or confined pets are allowed in our boat ramp parking lots and on our perimeter levees and in boats if someone were to take them out in a boat. But we're not allowing them to roam freely on the refuge. They all need to be under control with a 6-foot leash length. In the case of a pet, you would walk on a leash. With a what?
If they come with a snake, make sure they take it home.
Yeah, and no FLEPC listed species. No, that is one thing we will not permit. Good point. Ceremonies. We're looking at allowing a small number of very limited in scope ceremonies in 2 locations on the refuge. One is our C6 Pavilion, just down the road from headquarters, and another is a small grassy area at the Locks Road recreational area. And these will be things like, we frequently get requests for small wedding ceremonies. So we're looking at, just a small group of people for a brief period of time, once or twice a month, outlawing all that might go along with that could be impactful. No balloons, no throwing rice, no releasing doves, no incense, no loud music. I mean, we get all these things. People ask us all the time about this. So we're trying to be reasonable and accommodate people in a way that provides opportunities for the public, but yet protects the resource and is compatible with other public uses. So ceremonies, this will all be handled by special use permit. Similarly, instructor-led small group activities, and this could be something like yoga or Tai Chi or painting instruction. Small groups in specific locations for brief periods of time, a couple times a month is what we're looking at, again, regulated by special use permit. Camping, we're looking at establishing a couple campsites on the L7 on the west side of the refuge. This would be first come, first served through a permit system. It would be hike or bike in, or you could motor down the canal and camp at those sites for up to 2 days or 2 nights at a time. The very southern end, those are the canoe platforms I mentioned. And then we're looking at group camping in Struzula. So this would be something different. This would be more of like a Boy Scout, Girl Scout type overnight experience in Struzula, not individual camping parties like at the other sites. I mentioned that. Horseback riding. We're looking at opening up the perimeter levee and the levee that runs along the northern edge of Struzula to horseback riding. It would be small groups, no more than 5 horses in a group. If there were more, then we would require them to get a special use permit. And the riders will be responsible for cleaning up after their horses, so we're going to require the manure bags. And if they make a mess, then they'll be required to clean it up. And we'll monitor this carefully. We've had people, bike riders, say, I'm concerned that if I pass a horse on the levee, it's pretty tight quarters, the horse could spook, and someone could get hurt. So, as I said earlier, kind of the guiding philosophy is we're going to start small in the sense of conservative, and we're going to monitor, and then we'll grow adaptively from there. Non-hunting airboating, what you could call recreational airboating, we're opening that up at the very southern end of the refuge, so about 14,000 acres at the southern end of the refuge. So this is airboating that's not associated with hunting. This is some people don't like that term, but I'll use it. Recreational airboating at the southern end of the refuge and up the L7 to 20 Mile Bend at the north corner of the refuge. And so we're looking at allowing this, starting out with somewhere around 15 permits, so it would be an annual fee-based permit. It would be by lottery. The refuge would provide a mandatory orientation. There would be water level restrictions, so if the water levels dropped to the point where harm was being caused to primarily the substrate, we would close it, although the southern end of the refuge is the deepest, so it's the least likely to be closed. Right now, the northern end of the refuge is closed. We don't even go out there because of the water levels. The southern end is the deepest and the least likely to be closed. And then we're going to require folks to have a GPS unit or some way they can track their location so they don't accidentally wander off into the wrong area and get themselves in trouble. And then we're right now working our biologist on a monitoring plan. So we'll monitor and reevaluate in 3 to 5 years and see, well, can we increase the number? Do we need to decrease the number? Are there other changes that need to be made? We're looking at right now 3-day weekends from July through November. So we're outside the bulk of like wading bird breeding season. We're trying to minimize conflicts with hunting, but yet provide as much opportunity for airboaters as we reasonably can and balance it out against all the many other uses for the refuge. If there is a conflict between recreational airboating and some form of hunting, then recreational airboating would be suspended during that hunt. So as I said earlier, there would be none during the deer hunt, just as an example. And then outreach, this is part of it, coming to meetings like this and sharing the plan, meeting with city councils, governmental agencies. We're actually developing a formal outreach plan as we roll into implementation, off-site events and updating our informational resources. And then working with volunteers. We have a fantastic volunteer program. They donated 14,000 hours to the refuge last year, which is the equivalent of about 7 full-time employees. We have a fantastic friends group and tremendous partnerships, some of which I mentioned earlier, and those will continue to be priorities for us. We're going to have to charge a fee for some of these because it costs money and it takes time and effort. But we're looking at what I think are reasonable fees, something like $10 a night for camping, $25 for a hunting permit, and $50 for an annual airboat permit. We're making changes, and they would all be new fees, of course. We're making changes to our existing fee program. We're eliminating fees for pedestrians and bicyclists, and we're looking at increasing the annual pass fee, which hasn't changed in price for over 20 years, increasing that from $12 to $25. So these are also in the works. Concessions, we'd like to restart the concession at the south end. At Locks Road, back in the 80s into the early 90s, there was a pretty successful concession, and then for a variety of reasons, they closed up, and we really haven't had anything there since. So we would go through a competitive process to start a concession at the south end, and we're looking at things like, the limited sale of food and bait, fishing gear, bike rentals, boat rentals, potentially even airboat tours. We're thinking it would be really neat to have like a tram, like a pontoon boat shuttle that would take you from Locks Road up to Lee Road, up to Struzula, maybe even all the way around the perimeter if somebody wanted to go out for a long ride. So we're trying to get creative. This is a little further down the road, but I think we're going to attract a good concessionaire that's going to open up a whole world of new possibilities for visitors to the refuge. And then commercial use, so guided use, interpretive tours, either on the water or in our impoundments. It could be guided fishing or guided hunting. I mean, we'll see where this goes, but we definitely want to look further into working with guides and making the refuge more accessible to people who wouldn't feel comfortable if they weren't out with some type of a guide. And then, so here's where we are in the process. We've come 2/3 of the way around the circle. The plan is finalized. We're now in the implementation stage, as I said, and we're moving quickly, but I think thoughtfully to try and roll this out in the best way we can. Some things we can do quickly, in-house, like allowing leashed pets on the refuge, changing the hours, changing the signs, outreach. Those are the kinds of things that we can control in-house and will happen relatively soon. Other things like hunting is a longer process. That has to go through the Federal Register. The register typically opens in the fall, so our plan is to prepare all the documents and submit them for register this fall, which means that these new hunts and expanded hunts would take place starting next year, so in 2020. And airboating would likely open up, if not this fall, then the following year. We're still early, well, not so much early, but we're still working our way through that and a lot of these implementation processes. So we're moving forward as quickly as we can. And again, I want to thank our partners who've really stepped up to the table and have made this job not so much easier, but better than it would have been otherwise. So thank you for that. And that's all. I appreciate your time, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
I have three, but I'm going to hold them because I know there's some more out there. First person want to raise for Pete?
Well, thank you for that vision. That was truly refreshing. It was progressive. I think over the years, Newt and I have had many discussions. If we want public support for public lands and waters, we need to have public access to those lands and waters. And we know from our experience, if I put my Audubon hat on for a minute, that hunting and birding are not incompatible uses. Our success at STA 5 and 6 has demonstrated that you can have the best of both worlds. We have to respect our friends, our neighbors. People have different interests. But thank you very much for that. That's really great. The answer to the other question was $538,919,000 with no overruns if we can finish by 2025. So Kissimmee is costing us $750 million, evenly split between the district and the Corps, except that all of the operation and maintenance in the future is a Corps responsibility, not like other SERP projects. So again, thank you for that vision. It is truly refreshing to hear people with imagination and willingness to try things, not just say why we can't do things. Great.
I just want to thank staff and also FWC staff for putting this together in what may seem like a long fashion, but it's been relatively pretty quick for the way the U.S. Fish and Wildlife works, which we all know. So really want to thank y'all. I know y'all gave it an extra effort to make sure that that moved forward. And we're really pleased and really excited and extremely looking forward to this extra recreational opportunity on locks.
And I would just reiterate, as I said earlier, you are our users, you are our customers in that sense, and we rely on you to be our eyes and ears. We have a law enforcement staff of 2 that is spread impossibly thin. And so as you're out on the refuge enjoying it, we want to hear from you. What's good, what's not so good, what's working, what's not working. This is what helps us to do a better job of managing the refuge. So please, if you draw an airboat permit, if you're one of our hunters, then stop by headquarters, give us a call, shoot us an email. That's how we do our jobs better. We rely on you all. So I want to encourage you to do that.
Newton, I'd like to add one more thing. I just want to say to all of y'all, I know y'all heard me whine a lot about the exotics and Arthur Marshall. And I want to give the South Florida Water Management District and FWC a big applause, because the last 3 years I've been into the interior working on our Earth Day projects. I got to say, this year it was very humbling to see the difference with the money spent in exotics this year and, the last few years. Is truly making a difference. You can actually see the difference in the refuge. And I'd like to thank all 3 of y'all working together to make that place a whole lot more nicer. And but selfishly, I would like to say again, it's what happens when the sportsmen get into the interior or something and get to looking at it with their own eyes and their own ears and have their own mouths to talk about it. So it goes to show you what happens when you let us behind the gate to get in there to see what's really going on, and we can compare it to other areas that we use. So, but it is, money's well spent. I can see the difference myself, and it was very rewarding.
Yeah. Yes, it took a bit of a baseball bat to get some attention on that. Yeah.
Yeah, Steve, more of a comment. My perception is that bass fishermen through the winter very much value the interior of the refuge, perhaps even more than they value the interior of Everglades Wildlife Management Area for fishing. They do quite well in there. And so the complete closure of access to all other users during the deer hunt, I think, is going to be something that is going to need some work at being communicated. And I would also encourage you, if you hadn't had the thought, to make sure you get it in your system that you're not issuing any tournament permits for those 2-3 day hunt periods, because that would, we have a history of a long waiting list at the refuge for tournament access, for bass tournament access. And so making sure we don't have a little oops of issuing a tournament when they're not going to be allowed to be in there would,
that's a
would be
good
something
point.
to think ahead on. So just those comments. Thank you.
No, thank you.
Yeah, Bishop, go ahead.
I'd like to say in the public comment that we put into, we acknowledge the fact that there's not going to be any deer hunting, so to say, at the south end. It's fishing. It's, 4 foot of water. So our intent was never to close Locks Road during the hunt. We put that in our public comment. We would like to see Locks Road still left open, and other users still be able to use the area around the headquarters there and everything. The sportsman's intent was never to close the whole area to just for the hunting opportunity. We would like to see it open. There's no need, there's no conflict with us. You're not going to have that many hunters in there, and there's nobody going to be hunting in the area that you're bass fishing in.
That was one of my comments that I have when we get done. Who else? Okay, I'm going to ask a couple. I'm sorry, somebody, Bob, yes. Use the mic, Bob.
Yes, I'm Dre.
God bless you.
It was good to hear Bishop say Arthur Marshall. The namesake for that refuge is a very, very important man to South Florida. He died in '84, and he was part of the two-headed monster that roamed the halls of the Water Management District. That was a title bestowed upon him and Johnny Jones, not politely, by the district. And he needs to be remembered more out there at the refuge than he is. I mean, he is really responsible for protecting Florida as much as almost anybody else. The other thing I want to say is the boardwalk out there is the best boardwalk in South Florida, bar none. And that really needs to be highlighted. I mean, it's an experience for people that don't normally go outdoors, can get out there and walk that boardwalk and really experience the Cypress Marsh area of Florida. Thank you.
Good, thank you.
Thank you, Bob. The boardwalk, I had the privilege, just one moment, young man. I had the privilege of taking a lot of children from the inner cities over the dike, I call it. You'd be surprised how many people live in Florida and never been over the dike. In other words, never been into the Everglades past that levee that runs up in north and south. And we were planting cypress trees out there. I planted a lot of cypress trees at Loxahatchee. And we turned the corner on this boardwalk with these kids, and there was this nice moccasin laid up on the boardwalk. And we had a few moments of excitement, I can tell you. And of course, the moccasin went on his way. But that boardwalk is if you want to see a real quick view of what the old Cypress Everglades was, you can just park. In 10 minutes, you're on the boardwalk, and it's an incredible thing to see. Yes, I'm sorry.
I just had some comments. Is all.
Introduce yourself, please.
Not a problem. My name is Kerry Bible. I'm here representing myself. I'm not with any organization. I just had a couple of questions for you. Number one, namely, which biological agency is going to be the one that's kind of managing the actual reference numbers for looking at the deer herd and the impact? Is that going to be on FWC? Is that going to be somebody from the South Florida Water Management District team, or is that going to be somebody on your team? Who's going to be the one that's going to be reporting those numbers?
We're working through the details of that right now, but it will be FWC and FWS working in partnership primarily.
Okay, and what's going to be the primary methodology for taking sample size? Spotlighting?
Well, we're talking about, you're talking about deer?
Yeah.
Specifically? So we're talking about a small hunt of maybe 10 permits to begin.
Yeah, what I'm wondering is, so the permits can increase or decrease on your plan based upon the number of harvests and if the population is sustainable. So what I'm asking is, when we're taking the population numbers and surveys, who's managing that? Where's that coming from? And if say the deer herd is healthy out there and we increase to 20 permits and then it drops to 15, I just want to make sure we have a basis and a backing on that when we make those decisions.
Yeah, and we do as well. So we're going to start conservatively. We're looking into additional survey data. So we have some survey data that we've collected recently. We're looking at the potential for camera surveys as well. So that's another methodology. We're also considering the potential of a check station so that people could bring their deer in. We could look at body condition. We could collect tissue samples and age deer. So we're working out those things through our implementation teams right now. I can't tell you specifically exactly what we're going to do, but I can tell you that between our biologists and FWC, that's a big concern of ours, and we're definitely going to take that seriously because we realize that it is a precious resource, and we want to manage it properly. We don't want to go in and take too many deer off the bat and then find out we have to scale the hunt back. We want to manage it appropriately and, of course, sustainably.
Okay. Also, are you going to be taking surveys of all populations that are harvested within the refuge? So frogs, are you going to be managing duck numbers when they come through? And are you going to also be reporting those? Like when we hunt the STAs, we get harvest report data that says, there was 30,000 ducks harvested at STA 1, et cetera. Are you going to be doing that same kind of data management and passing that over to FWC for their harvest reports, or?
We ask our hunters to self-report, and most of them do, but not all of them. And so at this point, that's what we're considering continuing doing. So the data is as good as the data is. We would like to have more data and better data, but we're just limited in terms of staff and time and what we can collect. So we work, again, in partnership with FWC, and if new opportunities present themselves, we'll take advantage of that. In terms of frogs, our law enforcement officers will police that 50 frog per party quota, and if we notice that frog numbers are diminishing or we have an issue with frog populations on the refuge, then we'll scale that back. But given the length of the season and the areas where those frogs will be taken, I don't think that will be an issue.
Okay, awesome. And then my final comment is just I want to say thank you to both South Florida Water Management District and also the refuge itself and your staff, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, for opening these opportunities to sportsmen like myself that live here. I mean, I live right on Southern Boulevard, right on Olive over there. And so to be able to drive 20, 30 minutes west and have an opportunity to harvest the deer, the fact that I can go in and canoe at any point in time and I don't have to sit in a walk-in line at STA 1, and I can go try to find my own little teal spot in there. Which also, I just want to say thank you on all of that and for listening to stakeholders, both the consumptive ones and the non-consumptive ones, because I think that there's a lot of input, and I know somebody over here mentioned that we can kind of live together and in harmony. And I think, I just want to say thank you to the district for that, because I do think that this is an important opportunity for people to get out there and to value and have a tangible feel for the Everglades and for what these waters and these areas mean to our state. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you, young man. Mr. Fred Davis.
Hi, Fred Davis, South Florida. It's this building. Florida Trail Association. I had some comments or interest in overnight camping. I'm really glad to see that you're going to provide that. And I agree that the boardwalk is a great place for people to be able to experience the real Florida, but there's nothing like sleeping out overnight in the Everglades to really appreciate what it is. Did I understand correctly that the camps on the west side would be accessible by vehicle?
Only by boat.
Only by boat?
No, not by motorized vehicle.
Terrific. Or by bike?
Or hiking.
Or hiking, okay. David and I will be there.
Hike, bike.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Hike, bike, boat.
And I would just add as a kind of peripheral point to that, once the STA1 West project is wrapped up and the perimeter levee is completely cleared and safe to use, our intention is to open the entire perimeter levee. In fact, Dan and I were just talking about ways to get around some pinch points, to open the entire perimeter levee, 57 miles to hiking and biking, and tie that in with trails that come down from the north from Lake Okeechobee and exit from the south to Markham Park and Treetops Park. So potentially we could have a trail system that runs from Jupiter all the way down to Broward County that comes right through the refuge. So we're pretty excited about that.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, I'm going to ask one of my questions. No recreation airboating during duck and geese days. Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah, during waterfowl hunting, there will be no recreational airboating.
Okay, but the permitted hunting airboats will be allowed.
Correct.
Okay, because that's important. Related to that is no forward motion will be permitted, and watercraft must be turned off for a period of 15 minutes before shooting. Airboat permit required. Are we trying to shut the airboats down right before shooting time and not let them crank up again until after the shooting time has run for an hour?
Well, I think the idea is to allow people to get out and set up and then minimize disturbance during those early hours when people are set up and shooting. And the stop rule is basically, fair chase. We don't want people, running up on something and then shooting it as soon as they turn off their motor.
Okay, now, but it says motorized vessels. Does that include the regular kickers? The only thing allowed to hunt out there right now is regular kicker boats. And of course, you have a trolling motor. The logistics are not good as a person who hunts out there a lot over many years. To get to the back is an hour from the ramp, easy. So if you are caught on a mud island, which happens very often, remember, we're not dealing with airboats here, we're dealing with kickers. And when you're in a kicker, it can take you 30 minutes to get 30 feet if you bump into the wrong thing. There's a swamp back there. I don't see it being very logistically correct that all motorized vessels must be in place and stop 1 hour before sunrise. That's 30 minutes before shooting time. I don't know very many people who have their decoys all set sometimes, because that's a 35, 40-minute process. So I would like to, for you to consider the fact that I don't consider airboats a problem where I duck hunt, particularly when they're going to be limited in that level here. And I know logistically it's almost impossible for people to get to that ramp and get their boats in the water and run for an hour up the canal and into the swamp and go dead stop right 30 minutes before daylight. I just don't see logistically that happen. People are not going to be ready. And I think you need to look at that particular rule. I don't see it working. I see a lot of people who are going to be violating it because they just can't help it. It's dark out there. You try to find, let me tell you, even with GPS, you got to find 10 foot of where you're going into that swamp. And it's never the same because the wind can blow and the mud islands move. And you leave off from that ramp, and the minute you hit the trail, you've got another 30, 40 minutes to work your way to the back. You don't know when you're going to get there. And it can be different today than what it is tomorrow. So I'm concerned about the timing on when the boats have to have their motors shut off, because no one does that now. Everybody that hunts that place. There's days they get there an hour before and set up and sit there in their boat for an hour, and the next day they'll get there 10 minutes late after daylight, going to the same place. It is really difficult out there. That's why we don't have a lot of hunters out there. Young man back there tell you that. So I'm a little worried about that particular rule about shutting the motors off at a set time.
Okay,
And,
well, thank you for that, Newton. I'll convey that to the hunting implementation team. That's a good point.
That's just logistically not going to happen. You'll have people shutting their motors off in trails 30, 40 minutes from where they're trying to get to in order to stay legal. We need to have a talk about that. And we might need to call the, since it's going to be a year after this year, when we do the refuge meeting, the pre-hunt meeting, that would be a good time.
Oh, yeah, we should talk about it a lot sooner than that.
Yeah, but
I mean,
that's
the
August
implementation
normally,
teams
so-
are rolling.
Yes, about 6 weeks from now. Anybody else have anything else, or? Well, I think we all recognize what a tremendous step it is. I mean, Bishop, we talked about this how many years, and it's just an incredible thing. And we thank the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service because they are not overstaffed, I can assure you that. They also not overly budgeted. And if you're working with the federal government, it probably took, just the one little discussion we just had, it probably took something about that thick in single-space typing in order to get it done. So that's how much we appreciate it. Thank you very much, Steve.
Thank you.
All right, public use projects update from Jerry. Jerry usually has some candy to give us at these meetings. I look forward to hearing what he's going to have for us this time.
Okay, I got a short presentation this evening on a couple of projects. This is my general recreation meeting presentation. We're going to talk about just the A1 flow equalization basin and the water conservation area 2B Greenway. And this slide is a picture from A1. A1's in the background and then imposed on top of the, say, happy fisherman from a fish he caught there at A1. We did end up closing the A1 FEB for a couple of months in January, February, and March. We opened it back up on April 5th. And when we opened it back up, we stuck with the same days, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, 72 hours straight. So you can be here all night. You can frog at night, fish, and stay there. We don't allow camping, but you can be out there all night fishing and frogging if you wish. And all of our activities, like before, all the activities occur at the same time. We have biking, hiking, and the fishing and hunting all go on at the same time. Many people look at the A1 as if it's an SDA because it looks very similar to one when you're standing on the levee. But at the SDAs, we don't have alligator hunting when we have waterfowl hunting. But at the A1, we're having alligator hunting and waterfowl hunting at the same time. So we're having all of our activities together at the same time. And our access with boats, we're only allowing electric trolling motors on the boats. We don't allow any trailers. For the number, we allow people to drive in there with the vehicle, and if we had trailers and when they're meeting each other, that would be a little bit too congested. We have 5 launch sites they can drive to with a boat that's in the back of the car or on top and put it in where there's a boat launch site. And we are allowing this, when we open it up, after about a month, we begin allowing vehicle access more so than before because the area is very popular for bass fishing. A lot of the fishing is in the south end, so to get there, it's about a 5-mile bike ride or walk. So it's pretty hot out there. A lot of people really want to drive the vehicles out there, and we're able to get that changed so that instead of having a restriction during the summer, we have that open year-round, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. You drive right in, no special use license required. And we'd like to see people follow the 20-mile-an-hour speed limit. And over one of our weekends, we had approximately 150 people in there on one of our weekend days. And I've been out there and talked to a few people, and people are catching the limit, and they're very happy about it. So it's been real nice to open that back up. Here's just an update, really, or just to kind of highlight this project. We had a refurbishment of the S-141 Weir Crossing at the spot where you see on the map in WCA 2B. And because we participate in all the projects that go through the district, this one, we looked at it and realized if we could get the project to add a weir crossing on top of the weir, that's like it's not a bridge really, it's just on a platform built on the weir that's there. This would actually complete a bike trail that goes all the way around the whole Water Conservation Area 2B southern half. It's just over 26 miles as I measured on Google, so that's not probably really accurate, but it's probably pretty close to 26 miles. So we're real happy to see that go through because that was a project they were doing to fix that weir for a particular purpose, but we're able to add a recreation feature on top of it, and it'll allow fishing and bike riding. And there's a picture of it. So I told you it was going to be short, and that's it. But it's just kind of nice to come up with 2 projects that are good stories. Any little questions or anything?
Yes, sir.
On A1 I just had a question. I know there had been some talk about kind of dropping the duck permits because they're kind of useless. I don't think I've ever seen more than 20 or 30 duck hunters out there at a given time. I have seen probably 300 bass fishermen out there. Is that still on the docket to drop the quota system for that?
We've had talks about that. We have not planned to do that.
Okay. I just think it'd be better as an area that's, because it's kind of a fallback area. The duck habitat's hit or miss at times. They're in there sometimes, they're not others. So I think it'd be great if we could just open that all the time rather than having somebody have to waste like a reissue selection on a Fed permit or something like that, just have it open. I think it'd be a little more accessible.
Yeah, one of the things that we've seen with that is that no one takes their first quota choice as the A1. That usually is a second choice. So they've already gotten their quota somewhere else. One of our concerns, though, is that we do have SDA 2 and we have SDA 3, 4 nearby there. And so if people go and they wait in line for the lottery, if they don't get drawn, and if the A1 is open directly, you could have a lot of people running over there at one time. That would be kind of concerning. So that's just one thing that we have on our minds with that issue.
Yeah, don't give away my secrets. That's what I do, so.
Yeah. Sorry, they all know.
Jerry, can you give us an update on Lake Hicpochee? I gather we're getting close to the point where the project will come online, or is that a topic for a future discussion?
Well, I can tell you where we're at with that is that Lake Hicpochee project is substantially done. I haven't got a notice that it's finished, but we did build a public access site on the northwest corner, and we can drive down to the west. On the west side, we can drive down to the south end where we have a large drop culvert structure feature, which would be a great place for fishing. And it's about a square mile area, and we anticipate opening that up as a public small game hunting area. And we still have to work out a couple little kinks about how we're going to get in and out of there on the northwest corner. We do have a public access on there, but we have a lot of agricultural practices going on there. We want to make sure that when we're coming and going, we've got it worked out with the landowners there as to how things are going to go.
Any discussion on what's going to happen to the adjacent 2,500 acres?
Well, they're going to make, I do the recreation stuff, so when they build a project, I'll add recreation to it. That's kind of the short answer, Pete. But I'm not sure what their project is going to be there.
It looks like it in your picture, but I guess you've mowed the levee top north of the weir crossing? Because in the past, that was never mowed, because you couldn't.
It wasn't mowed, and when I went out there and looked at it, it looked like it had been mowed. And I don't know who did. It may have been the field station that may have done it. We didn't ask for it to be mowed yet, and when I went out to look at it, it was already mowed. So hopefully, with the traffic that we have there, it'll stay that way. I've been out there twice along that route, and I've seen like half a dozen bicyclists go by like in 10 minutes. So it's a pretty popular route. We already had people using that area, but they had to come off of the levee and go on US 27, basically for about, 3 or 4 miles up to Sawgrass. And so what this does is it allows you to stay on the levee for the entire 26 miles.
Anyone else? Okay, yeah.
Jerry, just wanted to say thanks to the district for allowing the vehicle access. I think it's so important that we have a little bit more vehicle access to these areas, and you and I have taken a ride out there, and I didn't think there was any problems with it, so I'm glad to see you have a little bit more of the vehicle access. But the other thing is, in your first slide with the FEB, you said that all users are using the area at the same time. And it's one of your only areas down there that we're all using at the same time. I just wanted to say, are we having any problems with it? And are there any more thoughts of opening up some of the areas, to the same concept?
Well, we haven't had any problems with it at the A1, and this is also a concept that we are, now doing at Dupuy. I think this will be our second year at Dupuy, having all activities together at the same time, and we're really not seeing issues with it so far. So it's been going well. It's been a step forward to us to do that, and I mean that's pretty much in line with Bishop mentioned earlier with the refuge, is that we don't have to have exclusive. We don't have to share the places exclusively by time. What Bishop was saying is that spatially people separate themselves because some activities occur here and some activities occur there. Like if we were to have alligator hunting and waterfowl hunting at the same time, which we will have, a lot of the alligator hunting is done from the levee, and a lot of the fishing, people take small boats and go in, or else they are bank fishing too. But we just haven't had an issue with it. So it's so far so good.
Well, that was the point I was trying to make, and hopefully we can look at all the other district properties as well. Same concept, open it up and allow the users to use the piece that they want to use.
Okay.
Yeah, concurrent recreation works in a lot of places, and we're just talking about Loxahatchee and the duck hunting and when the bass fishing goes on, every day. But the fact of the matter is because the duck hunters go back to where the bass boats can't get, they couldn't get within a mile of where most of them go. Although if you actually take your little boat and go back and fish where you duck hunt, it's amazing how good the fishing is, because nobody else can get back here. But and it's concurrent. And at some lakes you do have problems with the guy coming through with a pontoon boat and fishing through your decoys. It happens. And as the duck hunters lament, but most people are pretty courteous, and they see decoys, they don't go casting their plugs over there, but you have a few. Jerry, I want to ask you, C-44, Reservoir, and STA, how are we coming?
Well, I
Public
think
ac-
we had,
Public access and hunting.
I think that we're just about done with the SDA on that project.
It
No?
might-
Well, never mind that
The
answer
SDA should be
then.
done, I mean, the construction phase by about this time next year, and then we got to move it into operational testing and so forth. I'm not sure how that relates to recreation opportunities.
1 to 2 years, normal what the delay is. That's okay, no one complains about that. But we might want to, knowing what I know and you do know, was Martin County's involved up there? You might want to give us perhaps a update on that next meeting? On the
All right.
opportunities, because if necessary, I have to go, we're going to have to go to Martin County and have a conversation. Because they're not very pro-public access, particularly hunting. And the other thing was Nubbing Slough.
Well, I'm hesitate to go on that one after my record with the C-44, you know. I know we went out and looked at that site, and Steve, can you help me out with this one? Where are we on the Nubbin Slough?
I think they were finishing up some of the
Yeah,
some of
we
the
went,
work
we
they're doing
went,
with the
we went and
piping
looked at it, I
underneath.
believe. Didn't we go look at that, Jerry?
Yes, we did.
Yeah, I think we did an update a while back ago, and it's such a flashy
Smaller game.
area that it's going to be tough to guarantee that there'd be waterfall hunting opportunities any given year based on rainfall and everything else. So I think we're looking at that more of a passive recreation type area, and that was the update we did a while back. Yeah, but I think they do have most of the construction work and the repairs finished or close to finished.
Anybody else has a particular spot that they want to ask Jerry about today?
Are you talking about the Nubbin Slough STA? Stormwater treatment area?
It's
or
an
retention
STA,
area?
it's a STA and there's land.
I mean, we are looking at projects and putting together project concepts to try to keep it more hydrated in the future, so it's a better performing STA. But that would take funding, construction, design, those types of things.
What's the name of the STA that's on the other side of J&S Fish Camp there along 441?
Lakeside.
It's Lakeside.
Lakeside?
Yeah, and so
Lakeside's cattails, all cattails.
there'll be a new parking lot there. Well, it's developed and it should be open in the next few months, hopefully, when the test pumping is done on that Phase 2 portion. So you can enter it now from the north end on Phase 1. So that should be open in the next
What's the
summer months.
possibility, what does it look like? Anybody looked at it for alligator hunting?
We've gone through there before a couple of times, and it hasn't been really productive. I've been out there with Mark once before, and we just didn't see that many alligators out there.
How long ago?
Probably out there about a year ago, and that's the last time we were out there, a year, there's really no open water.
No.
The entire place, and there's a perimeter canal, a little small perimeter ditch, and then there's so much cattails to the whole thing, there's really no open, I think we've seen 2 alligators, neither one was maybe over 5 foot.
Yeah, we checked it,
Well, someone with
few months ago.
FWC law enforcement told me I need to check in on it. So maybe we need to take another visit out there.
That's the fellow that pulled us over.
Well, we can go out there and take another look at it, that's for sure.
Drew hasn't heard it yet, but he'll hear it a few times. It's SAV for the money, cattails are for free. You know, if you're just friggin' growing cattails, you don't need to be spending money. And if you want to get the phosphorus out of the water, you got to have some SAV, so somewhere along the line. Alico.
Say that again?
Alico. I know it's a water farm, but I saw the other day where about half of it might come into the district's management. It's a big 30-some-odd thousand acre place just west of STA 6. I know originally it was going to stay private, and they were going to collect a lot of money for water farming.
Newton, I hadn't heard anything different about it. but
Have you
I
heard
can
anything
look
different
into
from
it.
that? Yeah, Pete
My
might know.
understanding, it has a CRP permit. It is in the process of trying to acquire the permit necessary from Fish and Wildlife Service. so that if in fact the contract is terminated, that there's an opportunity to return the property back into its agricultural use. They did sell 5,000 acres under Florida Forever, addition to Dinner Ranch not long ago. So it's an active project going through its permitting process right now. It's a huge opportunity. We're talking about 90,000 acre feet of water a year that would go onto that. It's, you know, it's got some additional wetlands. You know, it's a beautiful piece of property up on the historic banks of the Pine Flatwoods and Big Cypress on the, just to the south of, just virtually right across the river from where Lake Hicpochee is, you know, so
Okay.
it's got some real potential there. But my understanding is they're going through their permitting.
Well, I don't know if any of it will come public land, but I know the 5,000 acres might have been what I heard. It
Right,
was
5,000 acres
the-
adjacent to Dinner Ranch, and
Yeah.
that has been incorporated and it's been a lease back. It's more, no, it's mostly uplands, not
Yeah.
wetlands.
Yeah. Okay, anything else for Jerry while we got him? You got a place? Thank you, Jerry, very much. Appreciate it.
All right.
All right, next up, our last presenter is Dan Cotter, Land Resources Section Leader here at the district, on the facility updates. I was gonna get done early, that's good. I'm pretty good about getting out of here well before. Appreciate it, good to hear you.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Got a couple topics to talk about, so I'll go through them all, and then, of course, at the end, open for questions and comments about the different topics. You all may have remembered this slide from back in December when I talked about the crew management area. So I'm going to talk again about it because we're making some additional improvements for public access and recreation over there. Crew is located in Lee and Collier counties, approximately almost 29,000 acres. And we've got 5 primary access points. 3 are up in what's the northeast portion called the Crew Marsh area. And then the 2 down south, the Bird Rookery Swamp, which has a boardwalk and 12 miles of tram roads, very, very popular. And then the one on the southwest portion of the site, down on what we refer to as Flint Penn Strand or Southern Crew, is down in Lee County. And that's what we're going to be talking about today, or tonight. Public uses in the area: hiking, biking, hunting, horseback riding, fishing, wildlife viewing. Primary partners there throughout the site are, of course, FWC and the Crew Land and Water Trust. And if you recall from the last meeting back in December, we gave an update on the parking lot that we built. And if you can see the slide, it's that star off of Bonita Beach Road and then up Vincent Road. We were able to, after the restoration was completed, and reopen this site back up for recreation. We were able to utilize the construction staging area. So that parking lot's been open since fall of last year. Extremely popular. You can go there any day. There's people parked there for hiking and biking, and the new trails that we put in. There's also equestrian trails there. And that parking lot also serves for equestrian trailers and ORV trailers as a staging area for trailers to access the site. And it also houses the FWC Hunter check station, which they've just added a new Hunter check station there. So I'm going to talk a little bit about here is the 2 additional parking trailheads that were currently being developed and should be complete in the next couple months. If you look to those 2 stars over there to the further to the east, kind of zoom in on those. And those are those 2 new parking areas. The one to the north, that star there, that'll be a trailhead that you'll be able to park and be able to access some of the restored area there further to the east. Real nice area, especially for birding and so forth. And then that one further to the south, we're going to be able to provide vehicle access also up to that star. Further south, we've got an agreement with adjacent south landowner that we own that road with to provide access, and we'll be able to reinstate the vehicle access for quota hunters to access further to the east on up to Poor Man's Pass Trail. So that's just really good news that we've got, 2 more additional parking trailheads that'll be going in there. And then we're going to continue to expand hiking and biking and equestrian trails through that whole restored section of Southern Crew, or the Flimpen Strand. Okay, back over to a totally different area, now back on over here near us to the East Coast. We're going to talk about Dupuy, the Dupuy management area, probably one of our most popular management areas throughout the district. The map to the right is FWC's brochure map. It shows the whole site, over 21,000 acres, located in Palm Beach and Martin County. And if you're driving along the northern portion of the site off of State Road 76, Canner Highway, you've got several gates that you can access the site for. And we're going to talk today about Gate 3, and that's that little red box there up top, and the aerial that you see to the left. That's the Dupuy Equestrian Campground at Gate 3, probably our most popular campground throughout the whole district. Okay, if you all recall, the district, that campground's been in place for many, many years, and we made some major upgrades and improvements to the campground approximately 2 years ago. The 3 equestrian barns that came with the acquisition of the site, we renovated those. That one in the picture there is the smaller barn on the eastern portion of the campground. All 3 of those were renovated. We replaced all the horse paddocks that had been there for years. Those were all redone. 3 new horse washdown areas. And then a big improvement was the installation of a new bathroom shower facility there, and that's a picture of that right down on the right-hand side. And then 2 new picnic shelters. So the campground is just, it's amazing out there now. Beautiful campground with all these, not only renovations, but new facilities. Well, with all these new improvements, of course, comes popularity. The campground is extremely popular. If you happen to be out there this past year or even the last couple years, but on any given weekend during the busy season, all the camping permits are many times gone, and you'll see the site just full of trailers, RVs, tents, and just very, very well used. And that's what I'm going to talk about over these next couple slides, is some of the updates and improvements that we want to move forward with to keep that campground popular and a great experience. In addition to, we always have, particularly in our management areas, but throughout the district, we've got FWC law enforcement support, which is we really heavily rely on. This past year, just at this particular campground, we contracted Martin County Sheriff's Office, particularly on the weekends, to assist with just enforcing the rules and regulations. In addition to the law enforcement that we have out there, we also have a campground host, particularly through the season, usually September, October till April. And this past year, and probably the last couple years, but particularly this past year, the hosts were dealing with a lot of issues. The illegal activity coming in at night, confrontations, and so forth. So they had to call law enforcement on many occasions during the season, and that's one of the reasons we had the sheriff's office, just to have a presence there and enforce the rules, and it really helped. Along with the busyness and some of these incidences we had, the campground is very, very popular. During this past year and probably the last 2 to 3 years, any given weekend during the season, all the special use licenses, which are basically the permits that are available at no cost to camp there, were all taken up, and none were available for equestrians to use for camping. And I bring this up because, the district has approximately 50 campgrounds throughout the district. So we got lots of campgrounds, but we only have 2 where we've got equestrian facilities like this. And this happens to be the Dupuy Equestrian Campground, and then up on the Kissimmee River, the Hickory Hammock Equestrian Campground. So for some of the reasons that I just mentioned, we want to make some real positive changes, and updates to just continue to allow the campground, to be an enjoyable and a pleasant experience. This is an aerial of the campground, and we've had this in place on a voluntarily basis, but we're going to actually separate the campground into two campgrounds. You still come through the same gate, but spatially separate. And if you see on the aerial, that red line, you'd come in the main gate, and then those who were non-equestrian campground campers, non-equestrian campers would go, if you're looking at that aerial, to the left side, and then the equestrian campground to the right, where the green lines are, would be available for equestrians. And that's primarily based on the facilities. That's where the barns are located. That's where the paddocks are located. We offer 50 special use licenses for that campground. So there's always 50, permits basically available for the camping there. What we're going to do is split that in half. So there'll be 25 always available for anyone to camp in the non-equestrian area. And we certainly want to, welcome anyone who wants to camp there, along with the other campgrounds that are in Dupuy. And then have 25 special use licenses available specifically for the equestrian camping. So that way we've got always some availability for the equestrian campgrounds, particularly with all the improvements we did out there for the equestrians. In the non-equestrian area right now, you pretty much can just kind of camp anywhere. But what we want to do is provide designated sites. It'll be first come, first served, but this way each site has its own table, fire ring set aside, and it avoids people camping on top of each other and some of the confrontation that we've had in the past, and it really just allows, someone who's going camping there to have their own site. In the non-equestrian, or the equestrian side, we'll still have fire rings and picnic tables out there, but a lot of times they bring in big RV trailers. They kind of gather up, and 2 or 3 trailers together in groups. So we'll continue to have that open over there, and we think these improvements will really help, benefit the campground. And what we're going to do, if you've ever been out to the Dupuy Equestrian Campground, there's a main gate there that stays always locked, closed. And the reason is because you've got horses in there, and you just don't know at any given time if a horse is going to get loose. So that gate stays closed. But what we're going to do is put a special use license lock on it. And that's similar to, most of you have been at our campgrounds throughout the district. We have these free special use licenses. You can go online and instantly get a special use license, even on your phone. The officers are good with that, and get that, and that instantly gives you the combo to that gate. What that does, it helps, the campground host out, and particularly the users there, from people, and particularly this last year or two, coming in at the middle of the night who shouldn't be there. It'll be the campers who are in there that are supposed to be there. That'll also require remember, this campground is also open to day users, and that's particularly the equestrians. They can come there for the day, bring their trailer in, and go riding for a couple hours and then leave. They'll get a special use license. I've talked to some of the equestrians, particularly one of the presidents of the organization that's nearby here, and she felt this was a great idea. Many of the campgrounds that are the areas that they allow equestrian use, like Atlantic Ridge and the state parks, or they have to get a free license to get the combo, and it keeps the gate always closed. The second thing is the dogs. If y'all recall, for years, was one of our areas that we did not allow dogs on the Dupuy management area. And approximately a little over, I think it's 2 years ago, we wanted to allow people to bring dogs out there, and we want to continue to bring dogs out there, particularly for walking and so forth throughout the site. But what we'd like to do is in the campgrounds, particularly the equestrian campground and the family campground, is just to limit that to 2 dogs per special use license. This past 2 years we had, and particularly this past year, we had some experiences where people were bringing in 4 or 5 plus dogs with them, couldn't handle them. You know, it was a couple, they were parking next to individuals that had other dogs. We had confrontations, we had some individuals who got bit. So we really want to allow dogs, but just, you know, keep it down to a reasonable number. And we plan on making these changes over the summer so that, you know, by the beginning of the season, the next fall, that these are all in place for Dupuy. And we really think that that's going to continue to keep that area, particularly the equestrian campground, a real good place to camp, pleasant place to camp for both non-equestrians and equestrians. All right, we'll come back to any questions on that. So lastly, I'd like to highlight is our volunteer project highlight, you know, of this quarter. And I see many of the people here today, and even families and kids that are here today were participating. And if you look from at that photo, you know, back in May, on Saturday, May 17th, we had 63 volunteers, including families and children, participated in the event. And many of these individuals brought equipment, particularly 17 buggies, swamp buggies, and all the tools required for this project to remove debris and particularly fence lines and fence posts off the Kissimmee River floodplain. We, staff developed a map, this map that you're looking at to the right there, of 4 different access points that we could get to on both sides of the river in Pool C, just north of 98. So we had 4 different access points. We broke up into 4 different teams, and each team had an access point with several buggies, several volunteers, and access into those areas. Those dots that you see are all the vicinities of debris. That doesn't necessarily mean a post or a fence post. You know, that's several posts or a vicinity of posts. So when you get out there, you start to see the amount of material that was taken out. And here's a couple pictures of the project. You know, you see on the left there some adults and children locating the posts, pulling them out, and then our staff prior to this project identified areas where they could stage and put at those 4 entrance points where they could you know, stage all the debris for us to pick up later, our staff and DOC crews. So just that one area alone, and there's actually posts in the background, there's probably a few hundred posts there, a guardrail and some other debris that came out just out of that one access point. And this is something really I'd like to highlight, you know, is what a volunteer project for just one day, you know, and it illustrates the benefits to this agency in the state of Florida. You know, we had, with that amount of volunteers, we had approximately 480 hours of combined volunteer service spent on that project. And if you look at the 2018 standard rate for volunteers, that's about $24 an hour. That equates to almost $12,000 in volunteer service, and that doesn't even include the, you know, the equipment and the buggies that were brought out to help. So it's just a, you know, a great project, a great example what volunteers can do to benefit, you know, the agency and the state, and of course the district is very thankful for that. And to further that, I'd like to give a big thank you to Bishop and the Lake Okeechobee Airboat Association and the Florida Sportsmen's Conservation Association. This was open to anyone to attend, but they, you know, pretty much organized this event. And then, of course, they had a little barbecue and get together afterwards. And that's it. Thanks. Any questions, comments?
Any questions out there? All the hard workers are here.
Jamie, pretty much put it together.
Yeah. And his daughter.
I just, I'd like to say, I think we're done with the east side. We need to move over to the west side. And, we'd like to try and maybe put a project together earlier in the year on the west side, then maybe we can move up into Pool A.
Yep, just south of 60, and we'll probably get even more volunteers from there. That sounds great.
We'd like to try to get 2 days in next year.
Okay, sounds great.
Then I hear there's some fence up on Dead River that's got to be cut up too.
Yeah. Any other
Dan?
questions, comments?
Dan, maybe I would just add for people that aren't familiar with that area up there, these were areas that were cattle grazed before they were acquired and used for Kissimmee River restoration. So there's still a lot of remnant old fencing up there that's now in the floodplain. And of course, that's why we're anxious to get in there and with volunteer help to remove, it could be barbed wire, fence posts, all these types of things that are still out there. And this is the second year now we've done it. And it's a good time. It gets a lot of good work done too.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. At this point is where we just make the last go around. Anyone has any further comments or might want to suggest a subject for a meeting to come with September 16th? Now's the time to do that, and the staff will have time to prepare an answer to your question or even a whole presentation. I'm sorry, a whole presentation. So we'll just start to the left again, and if you have anything you'd like to discuss, now's the time. If you have a suggestion for a topic that you'd like to see at the next meeting, now's the time. And just regular comments, because this is basically the last part of the meeting, so speak up now or hold your peace till September. Drew, would you like to say something just?
I mean, just to start, this has been incredibly educational for me, and I can really tell how much we can get done with this forum, not only in the meeting, but between meetings. And it's exciting to me to see all the opportunities we have at the Water Management District with our partners to improve recreation, manage it better, and get people out there. So it's, I'm looking forward to hearing what everybody else has to say, actually, Newton. So that's enough for me.
The Division of Freshwater Fisheries Management is currently advertising for a vacant section leader position, and a key responsibility of that person going forward is going to deal with management plans for a number of water bodies. This is largely related to the pause in aquatic herbicide application that we went through earlier this year. And so I really loved hearing Bishop talk about, in very positive terms, some invasive plant management control. And so I don't have a good timeline, but I thought this could be a forum when that new section leader is in place for a number of users that are using aquatic systems, but aren't maybe anglers always, or aren't maybe accessing those, I mean, because marsh areas are aquatic systems. So it might be good to have that new section leader come and be able to meet this group and talk a little bit about the process the FWC is going to be going through to develop those management plans for those waters. Because I know a lot of people are very interested in what's going on with aquatic herbicide application right now.
It is a really hot, and I mean hot, issue. We got a couple of hours, I think, Wednesday night with some people on that. So I really believe, I don't know what the district's doing per se on aquatic plant management, spraying particularly. I know we're involved somewhat.
Yeah.
But that particular thing, somebody's going to stand up. Well, it used to be RAC, but it's going to be in front of the governing board now. And they're coming, I'm telling you. We're worried, just real quickly, mark it on your calendars, August the 2nd, Ocala, Hilton, is the United Waterfowlers FWC Waterfowl Habitat Summit, which is 10th year. A lot of people come to this. It's an incredible full day of science and boots in the marsh. I think some people have been here, and I know Pete's come. It's free, and I know your staff are going to have 5 or 6 people come. All you got to do is come. We pay for the food. Well, generous volunteers listening pay for the food who send us donors, and the hotels and everything for the speakers. It's a very expensive project. But it's going to be on water quality this year, not on spraying, which we're very careful. We did that last year, as we say. And last year we had a lot of action at that meeting. Some of it not as pleasant as the speakers would have liked to have had. And so I believe the district would be well, maybe even at this group here in September, to have a presentation on exactly what the district does, so that all of us, we're the people who are out there on this subject, who speak with a little bit of common sense and are not too radical. And I can tell you there are some very radical people on this subject, go both ways. And I think the district would do well to give us some information, so when we are on Facebook, on the forums, you know, we can be positive and not just constantly have the barrage of you know, criticism. Anybody else on the issue agree with that? Because I know some people here probably have feelings about it.
Newton, as you know, the Angler Action Foundation has planted 100,000 sprigs of Vallisneria in the upper tidal basin of the Caloosahatchee. What we're hoping is not only does that provide great nursery habitat, but there's going to be a huge water quality component if we get some restoration. I'm sure we could get somebody from the foundation or from our contractor
That would be a good
to speak
comment.
in September.
Just, Steve, like that, he could put him on the list. That's easy.
And if the budget goes well, we got another $100,000 that we're waiting on Mr. DeSantis.
Baron, what's your timeline for filling that position, and will they be on board by September, you think?
Don't know, I'm sorry.
Okay.
It just closed on Friday, so 3 months from now, I would kind of hope the person is on and in place. I mean, it's certainly a high priority issue, as it is hot, and it's been vacant for a while. So I would hope it's the person's in place, but I just don't have a timeline, I'm sorry.
Okay. We'll touch base before we start putting the agenda together.
Yeah. I hope you're paying him war zone wages, combat wages.
Thank you, Newton. I'll change the subject just a little bit. And later on this week, on Thursday, June 20th, there's a meeting of the South Florida Ecosystem Restoration Working Group and Science Coordination Group. It'll take place right in this room. I know a lot of our members of this group are working during the day, and that meeting is webcast if anyone wants to look in a little bit to the nuts and bolts of the different CERT projects that are happening right now. And also, I'm going to back us up just a little bit on the agenda, if I may, and go back to Jerry's presentation on Water Conservation Area 2B Greenway. And I just want to say that improvement is going to be a really big improvement. There, like he said, there's a lot of mountain bikers out there. I have personally mountain biked that loop a number of occasions, and getting out onto US 27 is always a little hairy around sundown. It's a stretch. Lots of folks bike on US 27, but if you don't do it regularly, you don't want to do it at all. And the access improvements that were made a few years ago at 2B are really heavily used off the Sawgrass Expressway. So it's a great location for local families in Western Broward County to go out, get across the levee like Newton said, and get a little slice of the Everglades, a little touch of the Everglades, and get back to their home base in the same day real easy. So both of those improvements are well thought out and well planned. Thanks.
Continue down, Bishop. Danny? Go ahead.
I'd like to touch on something for a minute, and I'm sorry that Monica had to leave. I don't remember the last time I heard her speak, or if I have on this, but very knowledgeable. I feel like she has a good hold on that. You know, this restoration project, as the gentleman mentioned, has just kind of gone on, and I agree with Newton that you'd like to see what the budget was. I'd also like to know what we spent. I have a feeling that we're over on that. It seems like we just kind of keep putting that along. There were a couple of things that were in there that I would ask that maybe you guys go back and double check. Some of the restricted access and blockage, I heard the term indefinite used. I think we should support an end date. I know that can be tough with weather changes, but hey, most of us in here have lived here all our life. We know when the rainy season comes and the dry season comes. This isn't rocket science. I deal with it every day on job sites. You know, when you go to restricted navigation, we had that years ago in the C-37 canal. Danny will tell you that the Army Corps came in and they were going to shut down the entire canal, and they found out that they really couldn't do that. So we had a pretty good tug of war up there with some agencies. And it ended up that the Coast Guard and some others got involved. That's not really in our Kissimmee River wheelhouse, but I would tell you that based on my past history with navigable waters and the rules that govern that, I would encourage that to get done sooner than later, and maybe to help appease some users, move the word indefinite and start getting some time frames and start getting some things locked down. I think that's the best way I can put it in a forum like this. Right, Danny? Yes, sir. The other thing I'd like to note, folks, that hurts me greatly and should every true deep Floridian in here or outdoorsman. You know, I was taken on the KCOL the first time when I was 2 years old, and I'll be 50 this fall. My wife and I made the conscious decision to move and live on Lake Hatchinall, raised our kids on there. And we talk about the placing of rock, we talk about the placing of geoweb, when we talk about erosion, we talk about heavily traffic-used areas. The more people that come to Florida, the more this is going to go on. But I want you to know that what wasn't noted, no shot against Ms. Sovacall, but what wasn't noted was this is the second time now we've put rock down through there for the same erosion problems. You know, when I was a child, those rivers flowed just fine. C-36, C-37 flowed just fine. The natural course of action is for water to go out through Godner Carb Marsh and be filtered. When it goes dry, you use prescribed burns. Vince Matera and Ian Goretic do a fine job on the KCOL trying to manage that with the budget they have. I've said it before in meetings, and I'll say it again, the budget is highly insufficient for the amount of labor that it takes to properly do those burns. But that's the way it should be filtered. When the Army Corps came in about 15 years ago and said, we're going to widen and deepen C-37, they ripped out hundreds of native cypress trees, 100-year-old trees, beautiful trees, the roots of which held those banks together for as far back as I can remember. Same thing on the C-36. So we went in and we widened the canals, and we deepened canals, and we cut down the trees, and we ripped out the roots. And I got a feeling, mark my words as I'm sitting here, for a third time at some point in the future, we're going to be putting down more rocks and riprap. When we design projects, we ought to look at the way Mother Nature took care of that. Those cypress trees and stuff were uprooted for absolutely no reason. The canal was widened and deepened for no reason, but they just did last year. Now they started taking them out on C-36. And anybody in here knows how long it takes for a beautiful cypress or a beautiful oak to grow. And I don't see any reason for that. Two positive things I want to point out quick, and then I'll go here. I want to thank some people. Number one, Rory Feeney, I want to owe you thank you. Steve Coughlin, Dan Carter, Jerry Krenz, VJ Cattell, Vince Matera and Angaretic, on behalf of Kissimmee River Valley Sportsmen, thank you. You guys were very gracious in extending a user agreement, is that the right word, to put up a pavilion structure at what was formerly called the old Cowboy Hamp. The gentleman that volunteered to head that up, about the time he volunteered, his dad was diagnosed with terminal pancreas cancer. There was no way as president of that organization I can go to him and say, hey, when are you going to get this done? When he's worried about taking his dad back and forth for treatments and eventually lost his dad. I can tell you last Thursday, he called, and that structure is ready now from the manufacturer. We can go pick it up and take it out there, and that'll be happening soon. But I want to thank you guys for being so gracious as to, one, understand, two, extend that permit and work with us. It was just extenuating circumstance. The third thing I'd like to tell you that's very positive is you will be asked this fall that Kissimmee River Valley Sportsmen will put up the third structure. Mind you, folks, structure 1 and 2 we paid for. Thankful for all of our members and folks that come support our events. We had a member pass a year ago. We've done several fundraisers. This club has budgeted almost $34,000. The Cowboy Camp's going to cost us $20,000. We're writing that check. $34,000 for the next one. And that'll give us 3 there. The money that's left over that we've raised in those funds then will be put back in perpetuity to help maintain those structures. You know, as we keep thinking around here about building stuff, I made a comment one time, was Fish and Wildlife, and the guy, Bill Miller, Bill's been wonderful to us for outreach, and I made the comment one time, I said, you know, we buy all this land. I want to see the budget that we use to take care of it. Anybody in here owns a second home, it's not buying the second home. It's maintaining that second home. We keep buying all these homes. So know that the club will be putting some money back to help take care of that. I appreciate seeing this forum come back. It was a big blow when we heard that things had changed. You hear the words in here, partnership and ownership. And Danny will tell you, I use those in a lot of our meetings, and I have some people go, hey, we don't own Miles Point. We don't. Ownership comes in a heartfelt term where you take responsibility for something. And I appreciate everybody in here tonight that uses that word, partnership or ownership and stuff. As sportsmen and outdoorsmen, whether we're hikers, bikers, fishermen, airboaters, it doesn't matter. We're all stewards of this. We're all the same partnership and ownership. And I appreciate those positive terms in this forum. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jim. Alders? Pete? Okay, all right. Newcomers? Okay.
And I just wanted to say that, you know, we put this group together so many years ago, and after the December meeting, and of course, there's a lot of political change lately and everything, and I was really concerned that we were going to lose this group. And I really was concerned that we were going to lose this group and what would happen if we did. And I'm thrilled that the district, you know, had the insight to keep this group together, because it's one of the few places where you can put every single user in one room. We're all here. I mean, hikers, bikers, hunters, boaters, everything else, we're on one spot. And you notice over the years, I mean, we might fight and struggle a little bit, but when we sit down in the room, I think everybody here is professional. The speakers are great, and I'm thrilled that the district is going to carry on this meeting and what this meeting means to the people and the users. And I agree with Brad over there, you know, about the ownership, and I think we own this meeting. And I think the district can see that, you know, we can all sit from different sides of the table and wear different hats, but at one night every 3 months, we can all get along and use the places. I said to Jerry tonight, I think we can all use the places at the same time, you know, and we don't have to have as much separation as we used to think we have to have. So, and I think that has a lot to do with this meeting. So again, thank you, and I really appreciate the district keeping this together.
I just wanted to thank everybody for attending tonight. This is one of the best turnouts we had in quite a while. And I saw it on Facebook, people getting the word out, and I was invited to our own meeting on Facebook. So it was good to see. And like I said, it's great when we have, you know, such a large number of people participating. It just makes the meeting that much more productive and that much better.
Yeah, I'd echo the same thing. Not only this RAC group, but the bigger RAC, the opportunity to get all the stakeholders around and exchange information. People that you wouldn't normally encounter in your normal operations in your day-by-day life. You establish relationships, those relationships result in results. So I'm very pleased to see this kind of turnout, the representation from a variety of groups. I'd like to get a few more birders to show up once in a while, but well, if not, I'll show the flag. And as far as suggestions for future meeting, I think if we are successful in this Land and Waters Conservation Fund, and I urge you to Google it up or go to our Facebook page, support this. We're talking about $900 million a year, every year, forever. This is not tax money, this is royalty money from gas and oil currently going on. The funding for that, at least in our minds, would be a huge opportunity to start acquiring additional parcels for the Everglades Headwater National Wildlife Refuge. That's envisioned to be 150,000 acres. We've got about 10,000 already acquired. I would suggest we put a presentation on that National Wildlife Refuge in the September meeting if we could.
Yeah, Bishop, trust group deal, maybe we could do, you know, we do here at most of the meetings, we have a stakeholder group that does a presentation. We didn't have one tonight because obviously we got out of kilter.
Right.
And we're talking about the Headwaters National Wildlife Refuge. You think we could find somebody to come do a presentation? I know you're very tight, you know, he leads the trust group that we're all members of. Could you?
We'll talk about that, we'll work on that.
That could be our stakeholder presentation, and obviously, it's incredible. We've been working on it, how many years now? 8 years, yeah.
Well, we had the vision, we didn't have the money, and
Yeah, the
we
money
now
can
have
come,
the
yeah.
opportunity
We've
to.
been piecemealing it.
And
I
we're
mean,
talking about willing sellers and easement, but we're talking about public access to 50,000 acres in the Kissimmee Valley. Doesn't get much better than that. Yeah.
Yeah, and the FWC's already got a little bit of the property folded into a WMA up there, I believe. Yeah, Triple Diamond, yeah, so.
Right.
And that's another U.S. Fish and Wildlife Cooperative, FWC stakeholder type, model that's is doing well. It just, as they say, it needs more funding. Okay. We're doing well. Anybody got anything else? We got a few more minutes if you like. I just want to say the most surprising thing I found out tonight was that the equestrians, and they're not here tonight, which is not uncommon when everything's going their way. But I didn't realize they've turned into a little group of Corbett folks. Yeah.
I got on 3 Texas. Normally this is on the webcam, and it's not on the webcam tonight, so I got 3 Texas saying that.
Yeah.
So I don't know what that's.
That's odd, because it says on air, so I'm not sure.
Well, on air means that they're taping it. I know it'll be taped, you just watch the tape later, but
Okay.
usually it
Just
should
a
Uh,
be on.
heads up, because I get a lot of texts when people are watching now, and all I got tonight was, it's not on webcam, it's not on webcam.
Yeah, and that's another thing for the district to understand. Although we might have 30 people here sometime, there's 300 out there wanting to know.
I guess it came on late, so.
Came on late, yeah. There are a lot of people watching. It's a long way. I mean, they came from way up in the Kissimmee. I know Danny has a couple hour drive, and people come a long way here in the West Coast. I mean,
It rained for 3 hours on the way over
Pete,
here.
and Pete, you were here Wednesday and Thursday for me, weren't you? Yeah. So, and that is important for the district to understand. There's a lot of sacrifice from the stakeholders. And I'll make another, of course, Drew already has heard it. I had infinitum from me for the RAC group. The RAC, or whatever you want to call it, here is representative of what the big RAC was. You have all the stakeholders from all the different variety. There you have the tribal people, the politicians, the Audubon, you have park people, you have all of them around the table, and they do just what you saw here tonight. And the governing board can learn a lot, just like here, you learn the recreation going on out there. No one has a clue unless you hear this. And when you hear this, and when you hear RAC, the old RAC, you got a clue about all those different people from all over, 16 counties. You get a chance at it. And otherwise, how are you going to get 3 minutes in front of the governing board and make your comment? It's impossible. So that's just a quick plug.
No, yeah. I mean, and RAC is coming back. The overall RAC, it's coming back. So I think when the governing board was asking us at staff questions about these forums and everything, it was quickly extremely apparent how valuable this forum is. I mean, that just came across so quick and resounding. And I appreciate, Newton, you coming to the board meetings and reinforcing that, but that was an easy decision to make sure we kept doing this. And then it became an easy decision to make sure that we stand up the larger RAC as well. And so that should be coming back. Hopefully we'll vote that into its final sort of new charter next board meeting, and then be able to start those meetings back up. But this forum is super valuable to continue, and I got a heck of a lot out of it tonight. So, and I look forward to the September meeting, quite frankly. And Newton will, keep peppering me between meetings too. There's no doubt about that. And if anybody else needs to too, that's fine. I'll work with that.
I got a comment from the webcam, if you don't mind. So, I guess would like to thank Steve and Roy and SWC for putting together the ORV for the Picayune Strand. So, and he also says that it's on YouTube, not the district's page. So you must have to search for it tonight. Anyways, but people do watch this. It goes to show you that they're paying attention.